to do. But to us, from the outside, you're somebody who refused to conform to the expectations of what a female artist, musician, singer should be. And that was so inspiring to so many people. And I wonder now, do you think that the sort of sexism of the music industry, is still, we hear it from Ariana Grande, we hear it from all sorts of people, obviously it's still there. Do you see artists standing up to it, or do you feel that it's difficult these days in this incredibly corporate world of the way it works now?
I have no idea about that because I don't pay any attention to it. I declared I was beyond gender on horses. I've had kids, I've been a mother, I've washed hundreds of diapers. I know my own femaleness, but as an artist, I don't have any sense of any particular gender. But in terms of young people now and what they're facing, they're doing a good job because music is well dominated by women, strong girls. They've got it. They have it under control. Whatever they're going through, they're doing their work and they're dominating. When I was on the charts briefly, I was told that I would never get on the top 10 because I was on the charts when Debbie Boone had the hit, You Light Up My Life. It was #1. And I thought, well, I could maybe be 10. They said, no, they only let one female on the top 10 at a time. I mean, I just laughed. I thought it was really stupid, but I didn't really care. I wasn't filled with or consumed with the idea that I had to be on the top 10. I just wanted the next thing to be even better. But yeah, I think the girls are like the song, The Kids Are All Right. The girls are all right. They're facing a lot of stuff, but they're facing it well.
Thank you for listening to the interview from the BBC World Service. You'll find more in-depth conversations on the interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts, including episodes with Stevie Wonder, tennis icon Martina Navratilova, and Colombian artist Doris Salcedo. Until the next time, bye for now. From the BBC, that was the interview.
Good morning, Manitoba. How you doing out there? I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live with our team downtown in Winnipeg in Studio 15 here at CBC. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. It is 3 minutes to 6 o'clock. Thanks for joining us. We are getting ready for some serious weather today. We have a snowfall warning for parts of southern Manitoba. So we're talking Parklands, Pamela Valley, Westman. This will stretch into southeastern Saskatchewan. For our Manitoba side, though, Brandon, Dauphin, Morden, all around those areas, we're looking at you. Travel could be difficult, and you're going to notice that as soon as you're out the door this morning. That will just get worse as the snow continues to come. Winnipeg, we are expecting snow as well. 2 to 4 centimeters won't be quite as dramatic as this storm system moving through you, but our high today is -7. So that just gets us started. But as I mentioned, you're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app on YouTube, and wherever you're joining us from, thank you for being here. Abby Adiyemi is covering weather this morning. He's going to be busy. Also teching the show. Good morning. In our control room, also Mr. Darren Marash, who is our producer of our YouTube stream. Good morning, Darren, if you're watching the show there. And Corey Funk is directing the program and will be covering what's happening on your commute. Josh Crabb is sitting with me on this side of the glass with headlines. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. After one of the worst wildfire seasons in Manitoba, CBC News has learned more about an internal wildfire response review conducted by the province after the NDP government cancelled an urgent external review in 2023. You'll hear what we found out through Freedom of Information requests. Advocates say a new policy to charge child welfare agencies fees when kids are left in emergency placements longer than 30 days will further strain an already spread thin system. And a former president of the Canadian Medical Association says fast-tracking permanent residency for 5,000 foreign-trained doctors is a step in the right direction. Your next local CBC News is at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Josh.
You're welcome.
Just want to mention snowfall amounts with this system. So, Brandon, you're going to expect about 10 to 15 centimeters today. And then up in Thompson, you're outside of the system area, but just for you this morning, periods of light snow with a cold wind chill and a high of -20. On the program today, we much to cover. One of the things is the fact that there were more dead geese found in Lockport. We're going to talk to a biologist about what we understand about that case and also about the case in Niverville, which was confirmed as avian flu. So stay tuned. That and much more coming up. Right now, though, it's time for World Report at 6 o'clock.
Today on Q.
I'm Talia Schlanger in for Tom Power. Sean Clare is a Canadian rap legend who helped establish the rap scene in Toronto in the early 2000s. He'll be here with a new album, his first in 20 years, and to tell you about his early days of falling in love with hip-hop.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Today in the House of Commons, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre will put a non-binding motion before MPs. He says it's meant to force the Liberals to be clear about whether they support a new oil pipeline to the Pacific Coast and lifting the tanker ban. Janice McGregor is here from our Parliamentary Bureau to break it down for us. And Janice, why are the Conservatives choosing this as their final motion of the sitting?
Marcia, this is all about tactics, really. When last month's agreement with the Alberta government didn't go over well with some MPs in the Liberal caucus, Conservatives saw their opening to drive a partisan wedge and portray Mark Carney's government as divided on an issue of strategic importance in Western Canada. Conservatives say the wording of this motion is taken straight from the language in the Memorandum of Understanding itself, making it harder for government MPs to oppose their own deal. Debate doesn't start till this morning, but opposition leader Pierre Poilievre was using yesterday's question period as a warm-up.
Liberal members on one side of the country are saying they're against, while they're pretending in Alberta that they are in favor. So why don't they stand up in the House of Commons, look Canadians in the eye, take one position, vote for a pipe to the Pacific, and override the tanker?
The Conservative premiers across this country support this MOU in its entirety. The leader of the opposition is seeking to divide this country, and we can see through that cynical tactic.
As Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson was pointing out there, last month's agreement risked divisions in the Conservative ranks too, because opposing what the Prime Minister negotiated puts them offside what Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has put as one of her top priorities.
So how are the Liberals going to vote?
Well, nuances in the wording of the motion itself may be key here, because while the Conservative motion speaks of respecting the duty to consult Indigenous peoples, for example, Hodgson has been out on social media emphasizing that to move forward, a pipeline needs not just consultation, but co-ownership. So it's possible for the Liberals to say that, as written, this motion isn't quite an accurate portrayal of what they negotiated, and vote against.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. Tens of thousands of people are fleeing their homes on the Thai-Cambodia border. Renewed fighting between the neighbors has entered a second day, and neither side is showing signs of backing down. Cambodia's military now says 7 civilians have been killed and 20 others have been wounded. 3 Thai soldiers have also been killed. Our South Asia correspondent Salima Shivji has more.
As the clashes broke out, panic reigned. Now the fighting is spreading along the disputed border between Thailand and Cambodia, with thousands forced from their homes. Cambodian military trucks rushing to the border area as the death toll rises. The Thai military confirming it's conducting airstrikes, and both countries accusing the other of firing on civilians and escalating tensions. The Thai side opened fire and invaded our sovereignty, says this spokesperson for Cambodia's defense ministry. Her counterpart in Thailand, Surasant Kongsiri, had this to say.
Thailand's position, including its military operations, will continue until Cambodia changes its stance, such as returning to the genuine path of peace.
The border has been in dispute since the early 1900s, when the French drew a map with a line that Thailand says is incorrect. Simmering tensions overflowed in July with 5 days of clashes. A tentative ceasefire, which U.S. President Donald Trump boasted he brought about with neighboring Malaysia's help, is now in tatters. The problem is there's politics at play, says Greg Poling, head of the Southeast Asia program at Washington Center for Strategic International Studies.
This also comes at a time of heightened nationalism in both countries. And for Thailand in particular, there's a lot of political incentive not to appear weak.
Meaning calls from the United Nations and world leaders for an immediate de-escalation might be ignored. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
Rescue workers rush out of a building in Indonesia. At least 22 people are dead after a fire broke out inside an office building. Flames can be seen shooting out of the 7-story building in central Jakarta. Officials say the fire started in the afternoon local time on the first floor and it spread through the building. Several employees were having lunch inside at the time. Emergency crews have been seen carrying multiple body bags out of the building. Israel's government is facing another crisis as it considers new conscription legislation. The Knesset is debating a controversial bill. It would require some ultra-Orthodox Jews to serve in the military. Traditionally, the Haredi have been exempted from military service, but a recent court ruling and the war in Gaza have put pressure on the government to change that. As Tom Perry reports, it has led to some tense political debates and heated protests on Israel's streets.
Traffic on this highway near Tel Aviv isn't going anywhere. A crowd of ultra-Orthodox men and boys, almost all dressed in their traditional black clothing and hats, has blocked the roadway and a major intersection nearby. The latest protest against a government plan to force some of them to join the Israeli military.
None of us are going to go to the army. We're hell-bent. There's no way in the world we're going to go to the army.
To Yanake, joining the army means giving up his religion. Virtually all of these protesters attend yeshiva, Jewish religious school, and study the Torah full-time. They've been exempt from military service since Israel's founding in 1948, but Israel's High Court ruled last year that must end. This debate has exposed divisions in Israeli society, especially since the war in Gaza, as Israelis who are required to serve in the military increasingly question why the ultra-Orthodox get a pass. On this night, the tension is between protesters and drivers who just want to get where they're going, with angry confrontations as well between demonstrators and police. A bitter debate over politics, tradition, and religion on full display. Tom Perry, CBC News, near Tel Aviv.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky waving to the crowd from the balcony of the papal residence. He was joined by Pope Leo. Zelensky is expected to meet with Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni later today. He's rallying support against Russia. Zelensky has made it clear Ukraine will not cede territory to Moscow despite a U.S. peace proposal. U.S. President Donald Trump is greenlighting exports from AI giant NVIDIA to China. Trump says he will allow the California-based company to sell its computer chips to China. It is seen as a key reversal in the broader U.S. trade war with China. The CBC's Willie Lowry joins me now from Washington. And Willie, what can you tell us about this agreement?
It comes after months of lobbying by NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang. President Donald Trump clearing the way for the world's most valuable company to sell its powerful H200 chips to one of the world's biggest markets, Chinese companies. But there are some catches. On social media, Trump said the U.S. will get a 25% cut of NVIDIA sales to China. There are concerns over the legality of that. Trump also saying that the U.S. will have to approve the companies before any transactions. In a post on social media, he said, quote, "We will protect national security, create American jobs, and keep America's lead in AI." The H200 chip is NVIDIA's second most powerful chip. This deal will eventually extend to other American companies, including Intel and Advanced Micro Devices, Inc.
Why does this deal matter?
So the deal is part of a broader tug of war between the U.S. and China as both countries look to lead in the development of AI. There's bipartisan concern on Capitol Hill that allowing Chinese companies to acquire these chips could help bolster their military and economy. In a letter sent to Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick last week, Democratic lawmakers Elizabeth Warren and Andy Kim urged the administration not to allow NVIDIA to sell its more advanced advanced technology to China. The senator said, quote, "We should not allow big tech firms like NVIDIA to sell sensitive technology to governments that do not share our values and open ourselves to the risk that these technologies will be used against American service members, workers, and our long-term economic and national security." The Trump administration clearly sees it differently.
Thank you, Willie.
My pleasure.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. If you like the World Report podcast, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps spread the word. I'm Marcia Young.
Welcome to Tuesday, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Information Radio. This is CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app, or on YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team at the show. Thanks for being here. All right, are you ready, Westman, Parklands, Pembina Valley? Snow on the way. I should say more snow on the way. 10 to 20 centimeters before it tapers off tomorrow morning. So it's going to be quite a day. We also are expecting some snow here in Winnipeg. The forecast in a moment. This hour on the show, Main Street Project makes its bid for donations as the holiday gift drive gets ready to wrap up and be handed out. We're going to hear what they're still hoping to get and whether or not you can get involved in helping. Also, artificial intelligence is a top priority for G7 technology ministers at today's summit in Montreal, as you may have heard on the national news. We'll be talking about how the 7 nations plan to move forward with AI together. Stay tuned. And when Christ meets consumerism, we'll look at the origin of the Advent calendar and how it went from being a religious ritual to just another way to sell products. Stay tuned for that. That's coming up at 6:40. Right now, let's go to Josh Crabb in our news center for headlines.
Good morning, Marcy. An internal wildfire response review conducted by the province after the NDP canceled an urgent external review in 2023 consisted of verbal reports with no written recommendations about ways to improve. Why advocates are critical of a new provincial policy to address overuse of emergency placements in Manitoba's child welfare system by charging hefty daily fees for kids left there longer than they're supposed to be. And how a federal plan to fast-track permanent residency for foreign-trained doctors could help ease the country's physician shortage. Your next local CBC News is at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Josh.
You're welcome.
Josh is with us through the morning. So say hello if you're watching on that YouTube stream. Let's take a big breath, Abby.
The sweater says it all, straight out of the North Pole.
Abby Adeyemi always wearing his fun Christmas shirts during December. But you're right, we're going to get a lot more snow today. Do you want to start with the warning or with the forecast?
Yeah, let's just look at this high-impact weather that we're going to be seeing across the province today as this major winter storm moves across parts of southern Manitoba, bringing that blast of heavy snow. And this will definitely be making travel a bit of difficult from the afternoon period even into the evening, while up north we're still seeing those frigid extreme wind chills. Southern Manitoba, as mentioned, snowfall warning in effect. We're talking about the first time we're going to be using that code yellow, which is for snowstorm coming our way. It's in effect for a large portion of areas. We're talking about the Westman region, the Parkland region, the Pembina Valley region, down to the U.S. border. This system is going to be dropping between 10 to 20 centimeters of snow, making the afternoon and evening travel difficult. Specifically, if you're in the Brandon area, you should be seeing about 10 to 15 centimeters of heavy snow with, highs around -8. And then some winds would come with that. So frostbite is a thing. And if you travel towards the Parkland region, Marcy, we're talking about the heaviest total. Dauphin should be getting about 20 centimeters of snow once this system comes through. That's in high terrain areas. So you should be prepared for that. So prepare yourself for messy drives later today into the evening if you're in the Westman and Parkland region. Also, I'm not leaving out our friends in the Pembina Valley region south towards Morden. Light snow is already beginning to fall. Snow also accumulating. We're expecting 10 to 15 centimeters of snow in that part of the province today. But up north, it's more about the wind chill. We're looking at wind chill in the valleys of -35 in Churchill this morning and snow already falling in the north. Winnipeg, we're kicking off the day. Cloudy conditions. I spotted some misty conditions on my way in. Currently at -11. We'll warm to -7 later.
All right. Thank you, Abby. Abby.
Thank you.
Let's get set for this drive, which, as we just heard, Corey found could be snowy. What else?
Yes, looking at Manitoba 511, lots of snowplows out on the highways this morning, cleaning up after last night's snow and preparing for snow later today. So less than ideal conditions on the highway today, though. Might be a little slippery, might be a little bit snowy, but I would love to get some calls from folks to tell me what you're seeing out there. If you're on the number one, anywhere else, let me know what you're seeing. I'll let folks know if it's slippery. To help your fellow listeners out, that number you can call me at 204-788-3093.
6:15 is the time right now, and for 9 years, Main Street Project has been handing out gift bags to people experiencing homelessness in our city. To make it happen, though, the nonprofit holds a donation drive every year. They hope to assemble 500 gift bags, and we thought we'd check in and see how they're doing. So this morning, up early on Zoom, is Interim Director of Development, Cindy Titus. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. So how are you guys doing with your goal to get to 500?
Yeah, we're doing good. As you said, this is our 9th year doing this donation drive. It's one of our biggest donation drives that we do throughout the year. I think we started back in 2017 and probably did about, one or 200 gift bags, and now we're up to 500 gift bags. And we have a lot of donations coming in, but we're just putting a last call out there. We know that Manitoba is generally very supportive of the work that Main Street Project does, and we just want to put that last call out there for folks who may want to participate by donating to our holiday gift drive.
What kinds of things are you looking for in terms of donations? Is it monetary or is it actual items?
Both are great, actually. In terms of the actual items, it would be things like hygiene items in the smaller, individual package sizes, granola bars, softer granola bars, socks, new underwear, and then, some fun items like candies or playing cards. And in terms of financial donations, that's also really helpful. And for the rest of December, our board of directors has very generously pledged to match all donations up to $20,000 for the rest of the month. So it's a great time to make a donation to Main Street Project. And we'd encourage folks to do that if you have the means.
Where and how do you hand out the gift packages gift bags that you put together?
The gift bags are handed out across all of our programs at Main Street Project. So that includes our emergency shelter, our housing programming, withdrawal management services, and then through our mobile outreach program as well. So we're aiming to hand out at least 500 gift bags to folks all across our programs.
What kind of a difference do they make in people's lives?
Well, the intention is to make sure that everybody that we're supporting on December 25th has a gift to open. And I think that's appreciated by folks, but it's also a really good way to get much needed items to people. So, a lot of folks experiencing homelessness don't have regular access to hygiene items or socks or underwear. And that's a lot of what we provide at Main Street Project. So this is a great way to let folks know that people are thinking about them and that they care about them and we care about them, and then to get them those much needed items that they need.
What does it look like? You mentioned 200 to 500, and then I didn't retain whether that was year over year that you're making that many more bags, or whether that was since the program started.
Well, since the program started, we've increased from about 100 or 200 bags during the holidays to about 500 or a little more than 500. So I think that speaks to the need that we're seeing in Manitoba that's grown over the years, and the demand on our programs and services as well. So all of that has grown significantly over the years, and we're doing our best to meet that need as the years go on.
And what's the change been year over year, Cindy, that you've noticed, either in terms of what items people need out there, or else in terms of the numbers of people you're serving?
Yeah, we're definitely serving more people. When we started this gift drive at Main Street Project, our shelter was served 75 people a night on mats on the floor, and since then our shelter has grown largely during COVID to 120 beds, and then in terms of our housing programming that's grown as well over the years, and our mobile outreach team is definitely serving a lot more folks. We all know that visible homelessness has grown in the city, and so our outreach team is, meeting with a lot of those folks and getting them the items that they need. So the need continues to grow, unfortunately, but we are doing our best to be there and meet those needs for everybody as much as we can.
What's the deadline and how do people get donations to you?
Yeah, so the deadline is to receive donations for the holiday gift drive is next Monday, December 15th. So we'd like to have all donations in office by that day. You can visit mainstreetproject.ca to learn more about how to give to that. And then, of course, we're accepting financial donations ongoing indefinitely, but if you want your 2025 tax receipt by the end of December. So deadline is December 31st for that.
Thank you for being up early and for what you do at Main Street. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Marcy.
That is Cindy Titus up live with us on Zoom, Interim Director of Development for Main Street Project. So they're calling out for the last push for donations, their 9th annual holiday gift drive. They put together 500 bags. I love that they say they want everyone on the 25th that they work with to have something to open. All the details and drop-off hours, just to reiterate, that can be found on their website, so mainstreetproject.ca.
Something strange is happening in Canada. Kleenex is taking a powder. A certain peanut butter is skipping town. And why is the Colonel burying bland fries? Disappearing acts when popular brands are discontinued on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
We have been playing a lot of music this week and a lot from local artists, especially heading into the holidays. You might be beefing up the playlist, getting ready to play and support some local online or on your speaker, rather, when you're at home hanging out. Here's Winnipeg-born singer-songwriter Ethan Lyric, in case you want to add this one to the list. This tune's called Waiting on You.
We'll talk when the party's done and walk through the setting sun. Vancouver streets are lit up and flashing. 'Cause I miss the way it was when you left the things in mind. And you're still holding that leather jacket. And I can't break down the way I feel about it. No, no, no. And I know I don't deserve you, but I'm waiting. 'Cause it happened. 'Cause I'm waiting. Wanna forget it. All those words slip back, but I meant it. And I can't break down the way I feel about it. No, no, no. And I know I don't deserve you, but I'm waiting. 'Cause it happened. 'Cause I'm waiting. I keep on living without you. 'Cause I'm waiting on you. And it don't make sense 'cause I'm wasted on you. And it don't make sense 'cause I'm waiting on you. And it don't make sense at all.
That is Ethan Lyric from Winnipeg, Waiting on You on 89.3 FM, 990 AM. on the app and YouTube. Thanks for being here. Well, we're waiting on a storm. About 20 centimeters of snow is coming for around Brandon, Parklands, Pembina Valley, and that's going to continue through today and tomorrow. So just travel accordingly, check before you head out, and obviously you'll have a shovel at the end of the day. Well, next on the show today is the second day of a 2-day meeting in Montreal between G7 ministers with portfolios in industry and tech. One of the main issues is artificial intelligence. So let's talk about how we're going to get together globally. Mark Daly is with us, professor and chief AI officer at Western University, and he's here via Zoom. Good morning.
Morning.
So what kind of coordination around AI are these G7 ministers going to be specifically discussing in Montreal?
So AI now underpins economic competitiveness, national security, public services. And so this conversation is really going to be about who sets the terms for all of that. What are the standards? What are the norms? How do we get access to compute and data? And it's really important for Canada to be part of that conversation.
How is Canada planning to increase our AI sovereignty?
So we tend to think of sovereignty in terms of binaries. Either something is sovereign or it's not sovereign, and the reality is more subtle. It's a spectrum. So when Canada thinks about sovereignty, what we're actually thinking about is not should we do everything alone, because we can't, and that doesn't make sense. It means, do we have the talent? Do we have the IP? Do we have the infrastructure here at home to be able to be a good partner so that we can build the alliances that make us a global player and not just a customer?
The answer to that question right now is no, right? So is Canada positioned to grow that in any concrete way? Like, what do you see that might give Canadians confidence that we have a plan to at least improve our role in this?
I actually disagree. I think the answer is good. Yeah. Canada has an incredible amount of talent. 2 of the 3 winners of the Turing Award for inventing deep learning are based right here in Canada. So we have people, we have commercial ecosystem that is built around that. We have startups like Cohere, and we also have a lot of green energy, which the world needs to be able to do compute. So we have all of that. And we have a long history of being a good multilateral collaborator. So we have thought leadership, we have history of being able to influence standards and norms. And so I think that positions Canada really, really well to be an agent of compromise around the G7 table between, say, the competing positions of the United States and the EU.
That's interesting. The positioning is interesting when you're framing it that way. I want to talk about the states. So does a G7 meeting about AI coordination mean much if players like Sam Altman and Mark Zuckerberg aren't involved?
So G7 is just one of the rooms in which this conversation is taking place. And that's the way it has to be. There are many other meetings through the UN, through the OECD, where you see traditional state diplomats around the table. You also see civil society organizations, and you see paradiplomatic representatives from the big tech companies. So this is a multidimensional discussion happening in many places. And in a lot of those places, we have states talking directly to powerful tech companies. And I think that's exactly right. All of the stakeholders are engaged in the conversation.
What about leadership in the States, though? In February, listeners might recall U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance at that time warning EU leaders to go easy on regulation against AI companies. How can Canada and other Western countries then work together regulating this industry when the biggest stakeholder is, outwardly hostile to regulation, really?
So that was an important piece of rhetoric signaling the U.S.'s position. But the reality is every G7 nation in that room wants their industry to be able to sell to customers in every other nation. So there is that shared incentive to find standards, maybe not regulations, but means of cooperation that make it easy for each country's industry to sell to customers in every other country.
The consumption of energy by AI infrastructure is not on the agenda for this meeting. How much of a miss is that, given that it's such a hot issue right now, talking about, how we're going to move forward energy-wise, especially in Canada?
I think it's implicitly part of the conversation because you can't have advanced AI without the energy to power it. And Canada is a country with a lot of green energy and the capacity to develop even more green energy. And so energy is actually a geostrategic tool and an advantage for Canada in these conversations.
Thank you for your time this morning in analyzing this. We'll see what they come out with.
Thanks for the chat.
That is Mark Daly, Professor and Chief AI Officer at Western University. We're coming up to 6:30 in News Time with Josh Crabb. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at CBC. We're live in downtown Winnipeg in our Studio 15, waiting for the snow. It's a little misty out there right now, a little greasy. It's -11. Christely Ramlakhan will be in with our business news right after your local news with Josh at 6:30. Today, the Bank of Canada is making its last planned interest rate decision of the year. Tomorrow is when that's coming out. But today we're going to have some analysis of what that might look like. Also, some social media users are getting the option of sharing less data. So that's Instagram and Facebook users in the EU. So we'll look at what some of those new rules are and whether or not they're going to be reflected anywhere here. So stay tuned for that with Krista Lee. In the traffic situation on the morning commute, if you're walking, you're going to want to have good boots on. Boots, because the snow could be getting over our tops of our runners or our shoes today, I suspect. Today we're getting 2 to 4 centimeters in Winnipeg, and I shouldn't overstate it, but I mean in that Parkland area you could see up to 20. So you're going to want to have the proper winter gear. Otherwise, it's a pretty good start to the morning. Check 511 highways before you head out and call us if you need. 788-3093. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning, I'm Josh Crabb in Winnipeg at 6:30. It's -11 downtown, -4 in Melita, and -31 in Dooley Lake. We're learning more about internal wildfire reviews conducted by the province after the NDP government cancelled an urgent external review in 2023. Documents obtained by CBC News show the internal reviews consisted of verbal reports with no written recommendations about ways to improve. CBC's Bartley Kivas reports.
As Manitoba recovers from the most severe wildfire season in recent history, documents obtained through Freedom of Information requests are shedding more light on wildfire response reviews conducted after the NDP assumed power. In 2023, the province cancelled an external review commissioned by the former PC government. This June, wildfire officials said they conducted internal reviews instead. Documents obtained by CBC News show those reviews consisted of verbal discussions. They did not yield reports or written recommendations. Kristen Hayward is the Assistant Deputy Minister responsible for the Wildfire Service.
We don't like to focus on writing up lengthy written reports just because our response really needs to be agile.
PC MLA Greg Nesbitt was a cabinet minister responsible for the Wildfire Service when the province approved the external review.
I'm just shocked that they wouldn't have carried through on a review.
After this wildfire season, the province is conducting an external review with input from Alberta firefighters who battled the blaze in Jasper. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And Bartley will be in with more on this story coming up on Information Radio after 8 o'clock. Advocates say a new policy to charge child welfare agencies with fees when kids are left in emergency placements longer than 30 days will further strain already spread thin budgets. Mona Biors oversees child welfare services as a minister with the Manitoba Métis Federation. She says the kids in emergency placements long-term are there because they need special resources that don't exist. And the new daily fees, starting at over $100 per child, will hit her agencies hard.
The province is placing the burden of high costs of care to the agencies, and we are already underfunded.
Emergency placements are supposed to be stopgap measures in the system for kids to stay temporarily, but the province says they're being overused. The family at the heart of one of the oldest cold cases in Canada is looking for more information from police investigators. Today marks 70 years since grocer Michael Resk was killed in Halifax. But as Shayna Luck reports, the passing decades haven't quelled his family's quest for answers.
We are getting older, and we would like some definitive answers.
Michael Resk was gunned down on his way to work 70 years ago.
Carol Curtis is his daughter. She says over the decades, Halifax police have not been able to solve the murder. And now, closure for the family is a race against time.
It's like we're spinning our wheels all the time.
The family made a Freedom of Information request to the Halifax police to see the case file. They were denied access because it's still considered open. That doesn't surprise Mike Arnfield, a former detective, now professor of criminology at Western University. He believes improvements in genetic analysis will make cases like Rusk's much rarer. Still, he thinks police should be more open in this case.
At this point, they need to seriously consider releasing some additional information that, again, will jog someone's memory.
Halifax police said they've told the family everything they can. They say the file is still active, and they are looking for tips from the public. Shayna Luck, CBC News, Halifax.
The federal government intends to fast-track permanent residency for 5,000 foreign doctors currently working in Canada. Immigration Minister Lena Diab made the announcement yesterday. Dr. Joss Reimer is a former president of the Canadian Medical Association. The Winnipegger says it's a step in the right direction.
And when we heard from doctors who are internationally trained and here on temporary work permits, one of the things we heard from them that was a struggle was any sort of path to permanent residency. So if we really do want to retain the doctors already here, we need to listen to them and make sure that we're providing them with the services that they need to be able to keep providing services to Canadians.
Even with this fast-tracked plan, Reimer estimates there's around 13,000 physicians in Canada who are not practicing medicine. And finally, Canadian swimming star Penny Alexiak is giving the CBC her first interview 1 week after being suspended for 2 years for failing to provide her whereabouts under anti-doping rules. The swimmer explained what happened during an exclusive interview with the CBC's Devin Haru.
The day I missed the call, I knew it wasn't going to be an easy path forward. You know, I did do something wrong at the end of the day, and it's something that I do have regret around, and mainly just because I don't want to let Team Canada down.
And you can watch the full interview tonight on The National, on CBC News Network, and CBC Television. And that is the CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local news is at 7:30.
All right, thank you, Josh.
You're welcome.
Josh Crabb in our news center this morning. How you doing, everyone? Here we are, December the 9th, and this is the first sort of snow system I remember really moving in for the year, maybe even, Abby. So why don't you start there? What are we getting?
I tell you, a tale of two seasons. That's what we're getting across the province. The north is still dealing with those extreme wind chills. They've been getting the snow like even before we got it. Now they're dealing with the wind chills. We're talking about wind chill values in the range of the minus 30s up north this morning. For Winnipeg right now, we are sitting at minus 11. The folks will see snow beginning this morning with highs only reaching around minus 7, though the wind chill this morning for Winnipeg feels like minus 23. We're expecting snow for the city once the system comes through. We're looking at about 2 to 4 centimeters of snow. Now we track conditions towards the Pembina Valley region where we have that yellow snowfall warning. We're looking at about 10 to 20 centimeters of snow coming towards that region. Currently around Morden, Winkler, Alton and Morris, we're seeing temperatures around minus 13 at this time. Snowfall warning. You may get about 10 centimeters of snow for that part of the province. You warm to about minus 8 later today. Now, the Westman region where we're tracking that strong system coming through. Brandon currently at minus 12 right now. It's misty there. The snow is coming your way very soon, though we got some yesterday. Now, today for folks in Brandon, your snow will be coming with freezing rain and strong winds. So it's going to be more like a mixed bag for folks in that part of the province. We're talking about the range of between 10 to 20 centimeters added to what you have on the ground already. You warmed about minus 8 later today, though the wind chill in the Brandon area, we're looking at minus 27 this morning. Now for Dauphin, minus 11, cloudy conditions, snowfall warning also there. Dauphin is going to be getting a lot of snow today. We're talking about 20 centimeters. That's over higher terrain, so you look out for that. You warmed about minus 10 later. The frostbite this morning is going to be coming your way due to the wind chill that's in the range of minus 29s to minus 30s, depending on where you are in that region. For Gimli, mainly cloudy. Snow also starting this morning. A few centimeters, 2 to 4. We may see in that part of the province. You warmed about -7 later. Then we track conditions into the powerful influence. Surrounding communities -15 right now. Light snow falling there. Your temperatures will climb to -17. And then later tonight, we'll see the wind chill around -30 for folks in that part of the province. Thompson, good morning. You're frigid at -23 at this time. Light snow also falling there. You only get to -20 later. With the wind chill factored in this morning, it feels like -32. And more snow on the way even into the overnight period. Then way up in Churchill, we're seeing ice crystals there, -21 at this time. Along with strong gusts and northwest winds, the wind chill values around -35. I wouldn't say you're going to warm up much today because you're going to stay within -21s and -22s.
It's always colder up there because of the bay.
Yeah, exactly. So travel will definitely be difficult, especially due to that yellow snowfall warning we're going to be having for the Westman, the Parkland, and the Pembina Valley region, talking about 10 to 20 centimeters of snow, and Dauphin is really bracing for a lot of snow today.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
So between today and tomorrow, I was just on the City of Brandon's Facebook page. You know, what I do enjoy about the platform is people just start posting videos and such. So even as of 16 hours ago, this went up on the City of Brandon's Facebook page, videos being shared of just the flurries coming and everything's getting covered in white. So yeah, it's certainly begun there. Okay, let's get into the actual commute from Corey's view here in Winnipeg. What do you seeing?
So far, actually, it's been fairly quiet. I'm looking at Manitoba 501, but pretty much if you look right across the southern part of the province, those highways are being reported at least partly covered. So might be a little bit slippery in parts if you are hitting the highways today. Lots of snow plows out and about. Here in the city, though, I haven't heard of any major issues at all yet. But if you are walking, you're biking, you're driving, you see something out there, I would love to get an update, particularly what you're seeing in the west, in Western Manitoba today on the highways. Give me a call on the CBC commuter line and let folks know what you're seeing. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Crystal Ramlakan's here now with our business news, as she is every morning at this time. Hello.
Hi, good morning, Marcy.
So the Bank of Canada tomorrow, the last planned interest rate decision of the year. What are analysts expecting?
Well, economists expect the central bank will hold its benchmark interest rate steady to cap off a year dominated by trade and economic uncertainty. So the policy rate stands at 2.25% right now, a full point lower than where it started the year. Strong jobs numbers and an unexpected jump in real GDP solidify calls for a hold. And yeah, the Bank of Canada lowered its key rate by a quarter point 4 times this year. And at the last decision in October, policymakers signaled they might be satisfied with where the rate sits unless incoming economic data strayed significantly from projections. Now, forecasting a path for Canada's economy has been no simple task this year. The Bank of Canada did not publish a central forecast for much of the year. Instead, it offered a series of scenarios for how inflation and economic growth might evolve under different outcomes in U.S. trade policy. And Governor Tiff Macklem repeatedly warned that the bank needed more clarity on how tariffs from the United States and Canada's retaliatory measures would affect prices.
To another story, some social media users are getting the option now of sharing less data. What's the detail here?
Yeah, that's right. So Instagram and Facebook users in the European Union will soon be able to share less personal data with Meta in exchange for receiving ads that are less personalized, which, you know, might be convenient for your bank account, not always getting ads for things that you definitely want to buy because they study your social media behavior.
Then it's kind of scary and unnerving, and you're like, ee.
Yeah, and you're like, wait, why does the algorithm know me so well? But yeah, Europeans will be the first users globally with the ability to opt out of the data collection system that powers Meta's advertising network without paying a subscription fee. So the option aims to resolve a regulatory dispute. Back in April, Meta was fined 200 million euros for imposing what authorities called a consent or pay system that forced users to either allow personal data to be used for targeting ads or pay for ad-free versions of Facebook and Instagram. However, Meta is downplaying this announcement from the European Commission and says personalized ads are vital for Europe's economy. Now, Meta is also facing more scrutiny. Last week, authorities started an investigation into a new policy that may prevent certain AI tools from offering services through WhatsApp, which Meta also owns, potentially giving Meta's AI products a leg up on rivals. And the European Union has been, overall scrutinizing the tech industry more, even as leaders there have proposed perhaps dialing back regulations in a bid to boost AI development. But will be interesting to see if we see anything similar happening, here in North America.
And finally, there's been quite a shakeup at Apple lately, right?
Yeah, that's right. So the tech giant is losing talent, seemingly falling behind in the AI race, and is also getting unsolicited feedback from Justin Bieber even. So he vented his frustrations about accidentally touching that dictation button and stopping his music when he's texting.
Oh my gosh, I can't stand that dictation button. Yeah, especially because I'm always like, how many ounces in a cup? And then I'm like, oh, I'm texting someone this. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, uh-oh, I know. And he's like, if I have to hear that little beep one more time. But yeah, you know what? The biggest issue may be CEO Tim Cook losing his top people. So in the last week, Apple announced 4 of his direct reports are leaving the company. And that's a lot of volatility for a C-suite that has only had 2 chief executives since 1997. Of course, Cook and Steve Jobs. However, the head of Apple's in-house chips effort says he's staying after there were reports that he may be leaving. But yeah, still researchers and engineers have been jumping ship, joining Meta, OpenAI, and several AI startups. But Cook, who just turned 65, is not expected to step down anytime soon. He's expressed optimism about the upcoming product lineup, but still industry watchers are having some doubts.
All right, Crystal Lee, thank you.
Thanks, Marcy.
Crystal Lee Ramlakan with our business news. Misty, -11 in Winnipeg. Misty in Brandon, -12, and light snow falling in Thompson and -23 with that snow warning for the Parkland Brandon region as well. Up to 20 centimeters expected. Winnipeg getting 2 to 4. 788-3093 if you need to reach us. Well, you might be up early this morning, and maybe part of what you do in December is open an advent calendar. Cray and I have been talking about this in the office. Your mom does something cute, right?
Yeah, she every year she has this kind of like string of these tiny little knitted socks, like 25 of them.
Okay.
And then she fills them with little mini cookies, and then every day there's 4 of them, so there's one for each of us, and then we've opened them up after supper. If we all eat our suppers, of course.
Yes, that's important.
And then we all get like a little mini cookie with Advent treat. So.
Cute. Did you ever do the chocolates?
Yeah, I did the chocolate, and we also had these 4 candles in our house too. That every Sunday of Advent we would also light the candle.
So that's nodding to the religious roots of Advent.
Yeah.
Advent's come a long way. We have an item coming up about this in the show, and changed a lot. Because if you have an Advent calendar now, then you probably are cracking chocolate. That's the most common one, I think. But you might also be opening mini perfume or maybe some other consumer product. Maybe you even have an Advent calendar for the dog. Advent calendars were not always like that at all. They went from being a religious ritual to being something very commercial in 2025. This morning, CBC producer Leah Hendry explains the journey.
Oh, that's really cute. For Maya Warwick Brunel, the Christmas countdown has begun. And every little door inside has a small jar of jam. So there's these tiny little jars that each probably would cover maybe a small piece of toast. This advent calendar is a gift from her mum, who moved away from Montreal a few years ago. Maya won't be able to spend Christmas with her, so it's a way for them to stay connected over their shared love of jam.
There's cherry with pink peppercorn. Oh, orange, yuzu, and grapefruit. That one was really tasty.
Maya has been getting advent calendars since she was a kid, but she's never really thought about the meaning behind those 24 tiny doors.
Way back in the Roman Empire times, it developed as a way of preparing for the coming of Christ.
Matthew Anderson teaches religious studies at St. Francis Xavier University. In the church, Advent is the 4-week period leading up to Christmas. And Matthew says it's not all warm and fuzzy.
And the first 2 Sundays are anticipation of the coming of Christ at the end of time, the sort of judgment day. It's a really apocalyptic kind of a time. It's not at all kind of Christmassy.
The last 2 Sundays swing back to more familiar territory, messages of hope and acceptance.
It's a festival that, if people actually paid attention to it, is particularly suited for our weird and wonderful time right now in the world. And it also brings up, of course, a moral choice. How will I behave in this world? For most of us, it's who gets the biggest chocolate.
The first Advent calendars didn't have any sweet treats, just doors that opened to pictures of angels and baby Jesus. It was a way to get kids excited about the holiday. In 1971, Cadbury began pumping out its own chocolate Advent calendar. The rest is history.
And what we've seen now is it's become grossly commercialized.
Robert Warren is a marketing expert at the University of North Dakota. He says up until about 10 years ago, chocolate was the go-to Advent calendar. Now it's morphed into just about everything.
Nespresso released their Advent calendar, so let's open it.
Oh, it's vanilla. I love vanilla. Day 4 is a rollerball fragrance by Skylar.
There's even an ice cream Advent calendar, and one for crocheters, where you get a pattern every day to make a different character from the Peanuts comic.
I'm thinking that's just so ironic, given that Charles Schulz's Christmas special is trying to teach you about the real meaning of Christmas.
Robert says Advent calendars are just Christmas creep. Companies trying to capitalize as early as possible on holiday gift buying. That's why there's an Advent calendar for every budget. You can spend $10 on one at the grocery store, or a lot more. Like that time Tiffany's sold an Advent calendar full of jewelry for more than $100,000. This year, each Canadian household is expected to spend about $1,000 on Christmas gifts. There's no official data on how much the Advent calendar industry rakes in every year, but
based upon everything I've seen, we're talking well over $1 billion.
And it's not just parents buying them for their kids. Many Advent calendars cater to young adults.
The millennials really want an experience. Keep in mind, they're now the biggest purchasing generation out there. So if you think about an Advent calendar, it gives them an experience every day.
Even Matthew Anderson, the religious scholar, isn't all that bothered by the commercialization of Advent.
The Christian church has never been at its best when it's kind of shrilly demanding that things be, put the Christ back in Christmas.
He says people are going to celebrate the holidays however they want. And he doesn't think there's anything wrong with having something to look forward to. Even he's getting into it.
One of my favorites is the idea of a whiskey calendar. I'm hoping this year, who knows?
For the Cost of Living, I'm Leah Hendry.
For more stories about how money shapes our lives in big ways and small, check out the Cost of Living podcast. Or you can catch them here on the radio on CBC every Tuesday starting at 11:30 with new episodes. It's 9 minutes now to 7 a.m. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're with Information Radio here on the show. Thanks for joining us today. We are now just days away from the House of Commons powering down actually for the holidays. Before MPs go home, the Conservatives though are tabling a motion that is non-binding, but Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says it will force the Liberals to, quote, put up or shut up about pipelines. Ryan Tumulty's here, political reporter with the Toronto Star, to talk about it. Hello there.
Hi there.
So tell us about this motion.
Yeah, I mean, it is an opposition day motion. So this is the Conservatives' day to set the agenda in the House of Commons, and this is what they've decided to do with it. It talks about the MOU. It says that the House takes note of the MOU. And then it says that the House supports the construction of one or more pipelines to the West Coast to bring Alberta bitumen to Asian markets. That is language sort of lifted right out of the MOU, but also very narrowly focused on one part of the MOU, this pipeline piece.
So how does it differ from the agreement, the MOU that was signed in November between Alberta and Ottawa then?
Yeah, it uses the same language about one section, but leaves all the other sections out. So, for example, there's no mention in this motion about supporting higher industrial carbon pricing, which is what's in the MOU with Alberta, and which the Conservatives oppose. There's no mention of the Pathways Carbon Capture and Storage Project. There's no mention of higher methane regulations or any of the other things that Alberta has committed to do as part of this broader energy deal, which is what the MOU is.
So what are they looking to do, the Conservatives, with this vote? Like differentiate themselves or try to call out the government to say, it looks like they're in line with what we were always talking about with pipelines, but actually not? Like, what are they looking to do here?
I think they're trying to wedge and make an uncomfortable vote for some Liberal MPs. There are Liberal MPs, especially on the West Coast in BC, who have expressed reservations about this deal, specifically about the part on a pipeline. They have all talked about this as, a deal that isn't solely about a pipeline, and that doesn't mean that a pipeline will happen. They emphasize that, this is just the first step and that sort of thing. Because I think for them, some of their constituents aren't wild about the idea of a pipeline going to the West Coast, and especially not wild about the end of the tanker ban. So, they are trying to put those Liberal MPs in a difficult position. Either vote against your own government's sort of document, is how the Conservatives are framing this, or vote for it and show that you are, in fact, as supportive of pipelines as you pretend not to be.
I want to talk before you go this morning about another piece of Liberal legislation that's faced a lot of challenges. I'm talking about Bill C9. So what's the latest hurdle? This is the government's anti-hate legislation.
Yeah, so this piece of legislation, it talks about strengthening the sort of language around hate speech, and creating protections for religious institutions, so synagogues, mosques, etc. Some of the protests we've seen around religious institutions this year, this is sort of aimed at those. There is a provision in hate speech legislation called the religious exemption. It says that someone can essentially, commit hate speech, read hate speech, and do so if they are doing so based on a good faith interpretation from a religious text. So if they are drawing that inspiration from the Bible, from the Quran, from another religious document, then that hate speech is not covered under this law. The Bloc Québécois have long opposed that provision, and apparently reached a deal with the Liberals to remove it from this legislation in exchange for the Bloc's support to move this legislation through the House of Commons quickly. But it seems yesterday we found out that the Justice Minister did that, according to CBC, without really talking to the Prime Minister's office. And it seems like maybe that deal is falling apart, and as a result, this legislation is getting stalled. There is an 8-hour committee meeting today, so it's possible that this legislation will move through then, but we really don't know.
All right, well, we'll see what happens then. Thanks for this, Ryan. Appreciate your analysis today.
All right, thank you.
That is Ryan Tumulty, a political reporter with the Toronto Star, with us most Tuesdays for Ottawa Report. It is 4 minutes now to 7 a.m. Tuesday morning, and misty in Winnipeg, but it's going to be really snowy across especially parts of the province. So we'll get into that right after we hear headlines with Josh Krapp.
Good morning. A former PC cabinet minister who signed off on a $100,000 wildfire review says he's disappointed the NDP government didn't go through with it. Freedom of Information documents show internal reviews were done, but no reports or written recommendations followed. Advocates say a new policy to charge child welfare agencies fees when kids are left in emergency placements longer than 30 days will further strain already spread thin budgets. And why a former president of the Canadian Medical Association says fast-tracking permanent residency for 5,000 foreign-trained doctors is a step in the right direction. Your next local CBC News is at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Okay, weather-wise. So Winnipeg today, pretty straight ahead, similar to yesterday, 2 to 4 centimeters of snow, mainly cloudy. That's us. But let's talk about Brandon, because Brandon is already getting snow, and there's more coming. Dawson's going to get a lot of it as well. This is this yellow snowfall warning, the system moving through the Parklands, Pembina Valley, and Westman. And it's going to be between today, tonight, and tomorrow morning. Significant snowfall amounts, 10 to 20 centimeters, are expected. So it says in the warning that conditions are going to deteriorate fast. So that's why we keep mentioning it now. It's coming. Call us, though, if you need. And if there's a problem on the morning commute already, 788-3093. And check the highways. Snow-covered, slippery already in parts of Westman, especially in the north, too. But 788-3093. You should be fine in Winnipeg, as mentioned, getting around. Maybe a little bit greasy underfoot if you're walking, so take it easy with that. In the next hour of the program, we're going to build on something we heard last week. The city wants to add a fourth emergency response service dedicated to mental health calls. Mayor Scott Gillingham says the goal would be to reduce the strain on existing emergency services and improve outcomes for those in crisis. So no police and no paramedics. This is a whole entire different kind of an outreach that we haven't had before. So we're going to hear how a similar system is already operating in another city. We're going to take you to Ottawa after 7 o'clock, and we'll find out more about how it works and what we can extrapolate if that's going to happen here. In addition, in the next hour of the show, our community reporter has a story about why a man has donated his late brother's massive book collection to 100 little free libraries all across Winnipeg. So we'll have that story for you. And as the province begins consultations right now on the new proposed site for people to consume drugs, a supervised consumption site, we're going to hear from the interim CEO of very nearby Siloam Mission right there. Because remember, yesterday we heard it's going to be on Henry, this site. They believe, Siloam says, it can partner with the province to help people who use the site as a way out of addiction. So we're going to hear more from their interim CEO in the next hour as we put all the pieces together to try to understand this. Stay with us. World Report's next.
If the senior engineer is willing to take a pay cut, they'll take that junior role. That's exactly what's happening out there.
For years, the tech industry has been a great place for young people to find good jobs, but now some in that world say they have been forced to take pay cuts and survival work after losing their jobs to artificial intelligence. We'll hear from a couple of those workers coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway, this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Penny Oleksiak is one of this country's highest profile athletes and most decorated Olympians. She grew up in front of the camera, but now there's a spotlight on her for what happened out of the pool. Oleksiak missed 3 doping tests, and she's been suspended for 2 years. Oleksiak spoke exclusively to the CBC's Devin Haru.
I think first and foremost, that I'm sorry that this happened. It wasn't something I ever wanted to happen. It wasn't something I ever expected to happen. It wasn't
apologetic and taking full accountability. Canadian swimming superstar Penny Oleksiak is ready to talk, shedding light on how she missed 3 doping tests in less than a year, now suspended for 2 years.
It's just genuine mistake is really all I can really chalk it up to. But at the same time, yeah, it is frustrating knowing that I have that responsibility and that I wasn't able to uphold it to the standard that I normally would.
Costly mistakes, scheduling errors, she says. Wrong place at the wrong time, 3 times. It's raised questions about whether or not Oleksiak is a clean athlete.
It's never been me to do performance-enhancing drugs or even think about doing performance-enhancing drugs.
Her suspension means she now has to train in a public pool. No coach, no private training, lane swimming. Oleksiak says all of this has made her question her future in the sport.
Definitely when I first got the information, there was a part of me even that was like, should I just call it? Is this my sign? But I know I have that passion and I know I have that drive.
A drive Oleksiak hopes propels her through this suspension and into the next Olympics. Devin Haru, CBC News, Los Angeles.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky waving to the crowd from the balcony of the papal residence. He was joined by Pope Leo. Zelensky is expected to meet with Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni later today. He is rallying support against Russia. Zelensky has made it clear Ukraine will not cede territory to Moscow despite a U.S. peace proposal. Today, Russia's defense ministry says its forces continue to capture Ukrainian territory. Renewed fighting between Thailand and Cambodia is in its second day. Both sides are signaling they are prepared to continue sending troops into combat. Tens of thousands of people are evacuating border areas. This 18-year-old Thai woman is taking refuge in a tented shelter. She says she is worried the fighting will come to that area. Cambodia's military says 7 civilians have been killed and 20 others have been wounded. 3 Thai soldiers have also been killed. People on a rooftop in Indonesia scream for help as firefighters place a ladder against a burning office building. At least 22 people are dead after a fire broke out on the first floor. Several people have had to climb down to safety after the fire quickly spread to the floors above. Officials say employees were having lunch inside the building when the fire broke out. Emergency crews have been seen carrying multiple body bags out of the building. Authorities say firefighters are going through every floor of the building and the number of dead is expected to rise. Diplomatic relations between China and Japan are not in a good place. In the latest incident, Chinese fighter jets locked their radar on Japanese planes, and Japan scrambled its fighter jets in response. The incident ended peacefully, but as Lisa Shing tells us, the war of words continues.
Okinawa's markets, usually bustling, are experiencing a lull in Chinese tourists. Cruise ships have been turning back, says seafood vendor Shiori Nakahata. A month ago, tensions flared between China and Japan after Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi told the Japanese parliament a hypothetical Chinese attack on Taiwan could trigger Tokyo's military involvement. Since then, the situation has escalated. Japanese officials say the government will respond calmly and resolutely after Chinese fighter jets allegedly locked their radars on Japanese military aircraft near Okinawa over the weekend. China says it was holding training exercises and that Japanese fighter jets intruded without authorization. All this because China sees Taiwan as a red line, says Philip Lipsy, political science professor at the University of Toronto.
The Chinese government, it's fair to say, sees this as a non-negotiable issue of territorial integrity and sovereignty.
So China has asked its citizens to avoid traveling to Japan. It has also banned seafood imports from there, but it could be much worse.
They could halt exports of rare earths. They could impose various sanctions on Japanese businesses.
China has demanded Takaichi walk back her statements from a month ago. So far, there are no signs she'll do so. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Japan is on alert for a possible megaquake. A magnitude 7.5 tremor hit northern regions late yesterday. That prompted tsunami warnings and created some slow, wide-swinging seismic waves. Authorities say the next few days will be critical, and a major tremor of magnitude 8 or higher could happen. Officials are urging people to check evacuation routes, secure their home furniture, and prepare emergency kits. More than 20 million Americans could see a significant hike in the cost of their health insurance. Congress has until the end of the month to extend the current Obamacare subsidies. But as Mike Crawley reports, U.S. President Donald Trump has his own plan for health care costs.
It's something I really don't want to think about.
Lori Hunt is a breast cancer survivor in Des Moines, Iowa. Her health insurance premium is poised to jump by $650 a month.
Right now, that is not in my budget. That is not anything I can afford. So I won't be able to renew it.
Hunt is among the millions of Americans who buy health insurance through the Affordable Care Act marketplace, the program colloquially known as Obamacare. Enhanced subsidies introduced by the Biden administration 5 years ago are about to run out. Hunt is considering buying cheaper health coverage with a higher deductible.
If something happens, then you're paying for a lot of stuff out of pocket. So it's just a gamble, and I hate it.
In Washington this week, Democrat and Republican lawmakers are dueling over whether to extend the enhanced subsidies. The president's position is clear.
Obamacare is a setup to make insurance companies rich.
Donald Trump is instead floating a health savings account that he's dubbed Trump Care.
I want to pay the people, and I want the people to go out and buy their own health care, because Obamacare is a disaster.
Maddie Toomey is with a national advocacy group called Protect Our Care.
Donald Trump likes the idea of pushing people into junk insurance plans that don't cover pre-existing conditions.
If the subsidies expire, health policy analysts predict an additional 4 million Americans will go without health insurance next year. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Washington.
For 70 years, a Nova Scotia family has been looking for answers in the murder of a loved one. Michael Resk was killed in Halifax in December of 1955. It's one of Canada's oldest cold cases. As Shayna Luck tells us, his family is seeking answers from police, answers they say are long overdue.
We're getting older, and we would like some definitive answers, and we haven't been able to get any.
Michael Resk was gunned down on his way to work 70 years ago. Carol Curtis is his daughter. She says over the decades, Halifax police have not been able to solve the murder, and now closure for the family is a race against time. In 1955, Resk owned a small grocery store in downtown Halifax. His body was found in the back of his own delivery van. He was 37 when he was killed. Carol was 8.
We've heard a lot of hearsay, but nothing concrete. And it's like we're spinning our wheels all the time.
The family made a Freedom of Information request to the Halifax police to see the case file. They were denied access because it's still considered open. That doesn't surprise Mike Arnfield, a former detective, now professor of criminology at Western University. He believes improvements in genetic analysis will make cases like Resk's much rarer. Still, he thinks police should be more open in this case.
At this point, they need to seriously consider releasing some additional information that, again, will jog someone's memory.
Halifax police said they've told the family everything they can. They say the file is still active, and they are looking for tips from the public. At 77, Linda Resk is 1 year younger than her sister Carol. She believes the family needs some closure.
It's been so long, 70 years. I don't know how long I'm going to live, and I probably will not know the truth.
Shayna Luck, CBC News, Halifax.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, good thing we like the snow, Manitoba, right? It's coming. We have this system moving into Westman, already seeing it snow in Brandon. Lot of it coming to Dauphin. A lot of snow. That equates to, could be up to 20 centimeters. So we'll talk about that system and more. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us. This is Information Radio, your morning show on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. We're in downtown Winnipeg, where it's misty right now and minus 11. This hour on the show, we're going to be talking about something that the mayor mentioned last week. No police and no paramedics for mental health calls. That is what the mayor is proposing for a new mental health emergency service. Other cities in Canada already have systems like this in place. We're going to take you to Ottawa and find out about theirs. In addition, as consultations begin for the new proposed supervised consumption site in Winnipeg, we will hear this morning from the interim CEO of Siloam Mission, which is just a block away. They believe they can partner with the province to help people who use the site find a way out of addiction. So we're going to talk more about what that looks like together. There's a meeting tonight, by the way, for a consultation. So stay tuned. This is part of our ongoing coverage. Speaking of coverage, Josh Crabb is in with headlines to find out how other stories are developing. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Some advocates say a new policy by the province to charge child welfare agencies for long emergency placements is creating chaos and confusion in the system. CBC News has learned internal wildfire reviews conducted by Manitoba after the NDP took office consisted of verbal meetings with no written recommendations. This after the previous PC government commissioned an external review the province later cancelled. And how a federal plan to fast track permanent residency for foreign-trained doctors could help ease the country's physician shortage. Your next local CBC News is at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
All right, Abby, what's in the weather today?
It's a day to definitely take it easy on the road, depending on where you are across the province, due to these major winter storms that will be impacting a lot of regions in the southern parts of the province. We're talking about heavy snow and very difficult travel conditions. Up north, we're looking at those bitter colds still continuing. We have that yellow warning. Yes, someone said yellow snow, not yellow snow. It's just a cold.
It's Environment Canada's new warning system, right? They put colors on it. That was Corey.
Yeah.
Corey was saying it sounds like a bunch of dogs went out and did their biz.
I know, but it's coming from the sky, which is terrifying. A yellow snow warning. That's terrifying.
Okay, Corey, not yellow snow warning. Yellow warning.
Channel your inner 10-year-old kid.
That's me.
This will be impacting parts of southern Manitoba. This is going to be hitting the Westman region, the Parkland region, and even the Pembina Valley region this morning. Brandon, Dauphin, Morden, down to the U.S. border. We're expecting 10 to 20 centimeters of snow from this afternoon through tomorrow morning as this low pressure system tracks across the area. So road conditions will quickly become difficult from this afternoon during and into your your commute home later in the evening. So prepare for delays and drive with extreme caution. For Winnipeg right now, we are around -11, -12, depending on where you are. Still sporting that misty conditions in the city. Snow begins sometime this morning. We only climbed about, let's say, -7. And the city would see about 2 to 4 centimeters. So not as bad as what we'll be seeing around Dauphin. Dauphin is going to be getting about 20 centimeters in some areas. Brandon should see about 10 to 15 centimeters. While towards the Pembina Valley region, we're talking about maybe 10 to 15 centimeters of snow coming that way. But up north, we're just dealing with a bunch of snow around Thompson, Churchill, Gillam, and the wind chill is just in that value of only -35 this morning.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thanks, Marcy.
Spoken like a true Manitoban. Okay, let's get to commuting. Corey.
Yeah, so far it's really going to be those highways that might be an issue for folks this morning, especially in the west as that snow kind of starts to make things less than ideal. Looks like there might be some snowy or icy patches throughout the highways this morning, but lots of snowplows out and about trying to get ahead of that snow and battle that. But otherwise, I haven't heard of any major issues in the city or on the highways yet, but you just do want to be careful out there. Might want to drive a little slower than you normally do. Give me a call what you're seeing, though. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
Well, Mayor Scott Gillingham, as I mentioned, does want an emergency response service that's dedicated to mental health calls. It's an idea he was floating last year. He's asking the city now to hire a consultant to see how a plan like this could work. So police responded to 21,000 well-being checks last year. Here's Mayor Gillingham speaking to reporters about it.
Establishing a fourth response, which is specifically for mental health calls, would help alleviate some of the calls that the police are taking and allow police to do police work, would also alleviate fire and paramedics from those calls, and ultimately get people in a mental health crisis the response that they need with trained mental health workers.
You proposed this in 2024, October, so 13 months ago, 14 months ago. Realistically, when would this be ready? Sometime in what would be your second term, should you win again?
Hopefully, we can get the report from Dr. Contronio sometime, sometime in 2026. Maybe get the report perhaps in stages, but I don't have a date yet as far as when any program could be rolled out. But it's important that we look at this. Other cities are doing this. We want to get people the help that they need in mental health calls, and we want to alleviate some of the calls that police, fire, and paramedics are taking.
Mayor Scott Gillingham speaking with reporters, including Bartley Kivas from CBC last week, about this proposal for a community crisis response service, as he calls it, a fourth emergency service dedicated to mental health calls. So he says the proposed unit would not require police or paramedics, but trauma-informed responders would be part of it. So let's take you to Ottawa. They have a system like this in place. Theirs is the Distress Centre of Ottawa and Region. It started as a pathway for people in crisis. It receives, I understand, 60,000 calls a year. Jessica Fern is here via Zoom. She's Executive Director of the Distress Centre of Ottawa and Region. Hi, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'm just curious, how does your response system work in Ottawa and what led to it?
Well, A distress center of Ottawa and region has been around for over 55 years. And we really emerged out of a recognition that there needs to be this other pathway between either ignoring mental health crises, which thankfully we don't see as much as we did 55 years ago, and this immediate engagement of emergency response services. Instead, we need an option that allows community to be there for each other in a supportive capacity. And that's really how our service continued to grow to be what it is today. And the way that we work is largely through partnerships. So whether it's partnerships through local hospitals, with our emergency response services, we provide a 24/7, 365 days a year access for folks to be able to reach out and connect with trauma-informed supportive resources that can be there for them in that moment, can hopefully de-escalate, divert calls from emergency response, and get people connected to the services and supports that they need.
So it is, when you say people to reach out, like if I'm in distress and I call 911, then is it connected? So mental health professionals solely might be the ones that respond?
So we operate actually a variety of different services, but it is absolutely possible through our partnerships with the 911 dispatch here in Ottawa. So first of all, folks can contact us directly. We have a phone number that folks can reach out to. There's no requirement for a referral or middleman. You can reach us directly through our phone number or through our partnership with the federal 988 National Suicide Crisis Hotline. But we also have a partnership with the first responders. So what that looks like in practice is that if dispatch is contacted by what they identify as a mental health concern or crisis, they can do what's called a warm transfer, which means they transfer that caller directly over to our trained responders who remain on the line with that person. And in about 25% of cases, our responder is able to de-escalate the situation to the point that the caller is able to say, you know what? I'm all right. I have a plan for where to go next, and they can call off that dispatch. No matter what, making that transfer to us also frees up the dispatch to be able to respond to the next call. And then hopefully, even if the paramedics or the police do arrive, we've been able to be with that person and de-escalate the situation such that it's a safer environment for everybody.
So it sounds slightly different from what's proposed, at least here in Winnipeg, but we're just at the stage of study, as you heard. So the mayor is proposing, taking, as he put it, sort of the weight off of police or paramedics because they would not be required. That he's seeing this as sort of a separate unit entirely. How involved are paramedics and police in any level of your response? How does that work in Ottawa?
Right. So in the case that I described, that's when somebody has already made a call to 911. So they've already instigated that, and that's where the transfer occurs. But we absolutely, through, again, our partnerships with hospitals and also through the fact that folks reach out directly to us, we are a line that folks can contact instead of contacting 911. And our responders are there to assess the situation and determine, is this something that does require escalation to emergency response, or is this something that can be dealt with right here, right now? And so it really provides a variety of options where we are able to assess what's best needed in that situation. And a lot of times we discover that folks call for all sorts of different reasons that you're inspiring a crisis, but really what they need is not an emergency response service. What they need is to talk things through with a trained specialist. They need to know about other options and resources that they can contact. And so we're able to keep that conversation really rooted in our response with them rather than engaging.
What are the nuts and bolts of the call center then? Like trauma, our mayor wants trauma-informed responders. So what does that look like? How many people are answering the phones and what kind of training do they have in Ottawa?
We use a mix of our staff and volunteers. Volunteers, though, makes it sound perhaps a little less intensive than the process is. We have over 200 folks who volunteer with us. But to be a volunteer with the Distress Center of Ottawa and Region, you have to go through more than 60 hours of specialized training and ongoing mentorship, support and check-ins with our staff, and in addition to the paid staff that engage on a variety of different services and also ensure quality control and response. So that network of people allows us to ensure that we have, as I said, 24/7, 365 coverage in both English and in French. So it really would not be possible without this network of folks, but it does require a really in-depth training and also a commitment to ongoing learning and upskilling. A big part of our job is to pay attention to what are the issues and the needs that are emerging in our city, and making sure that our responders are prepared. So if we see, for example, a rise in calls that are related to concerns about housing and homelessness, we need to make sure our counselors and our responders are trained and ready to respond to that. So it's really a process of ongoing learning and being, as you say, really informed by understanding what a trauma response looks like, and being able to react accordingly.
You get around 60,000 calls a year, as I said at the beginning. How often do you get repeat callers? Do you have a sense of that?
Yes, we do have repeat callers, and I would say it's actually, depending on the service, we see repeat callers for what we sometimes call mental health maintenance. So there is, of course, the absolute emergency and high level of crisis. And our objective is certainly to see as few repeat callers as possible. We want to connect folks with the resources that they need. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that many of the folks that contact us have nowhere else to go or no one else to contact. And that can be because they aren't connected with resources. They don't have access to, let's say, physicians.
So they use the line repeatedly to continue to connect. What do you think the city of Winnipeg should keep in mind if we look at making this transition?
Well, I think that everywhere I've gone, there is community responders who know intimately the details and the needs of the community. And you're no different. There are already, I'm sure, incredible organizations that are networked in and that know the needs of the city. The key is to talk to them. The key is to consult with them about what are the specific concerns of the folks in Winnipeg, but also to know that you're building on this network. There's folks like us here in Ottawa and all across the country who are doing this work just in different ways to suit our communities. So really to lean on this community of mental health distress centers and networks across the country, but tweak it, adjust it, and really listen
to your population. I'm short on time, but I do want to add one more question, because in Winnipeg there have been calls for mental health professionals to respond instead of police for years. And a lot of that has to do with communities who have some distrust or say that they don't need to have police coming in, that we need, the mental health response sort of should be at the forefront. How has your system, how does it affect the police force there? Or do you not have the same kinds of calls and challenges around that?
No, we have a really positive relationship with the Ottawa Police, who have said specifically that they see us as a very helpful and necessary resource. Our job is not to is to be complementary. It's not to take over anything, but instead to be the appropriate response. And as your mayor said, sometimes the appropriate response is not police. That can heighten a situation and escalate it unhelpfully. So you want the appropriate response for the need, and that is trained mental health response, which then frees up police to do the work that they do in those appropriate contexts.
Jessica Fern, thank you. I'm sure we'll talk again as we continue to explore this. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Jessica Fern is the Executive Director of the Distress Center of Ottawa and Region. How should it work in Winnipeg? For those mental health professionals out there listening, if you want to weigh in on this, 788-3205. It's time for sports, and we have to talk to Scott Regehr about what we've been hearing in the national news. Scott, for the first time since receiving a 2-year suspension, Penny Oleksiak is talking about her future.
Yeah, in a CBC exclusive, Marcy, Oleksiak says she has never used performance-enhancing drugs before and that her suspension is the result of scheduling oversights. World Aquatics requires its athletes to submit their whereabouts for testing 90 days in advance, and there is an app that they can use if their schedule changes. But Oleksiak failed to do that 3 times in a calendar year, thus the suspension. Unable to compete for the next 2 years, then, the Toronto native will have to train by herself in public pools if she's going to compete at the next Olympics in Los Angeles. She'll be 29 by then, and some have questioned whether it's all worth it. Oleksiak thinks so.
This isn't something new for me. I spent a year and a half rehabbing an injury and going to Paris. And now I again have that year and a half to train, but I'm not injured this time. This time I can just put my head down to really get to a position I want to be in. I've never felt so supported in my career by the people I have around me, and I can only anticipate and expect good things to come from LA.
Oleksiak's suspension, Marcy, ends about a year out from the LA Games, and she does believe it's a realistic goal for her to be there with her Canadian teammates. As it is, she is the country's most decorated female Olympian ever, with 7 medals to her name.
From the water to the ice, there's a lot going on in hockey.
There is, including the Jets back in action tonight against one of the best teams in the league in the Dallas Stars. It's been close to a decade since the Jets had this low a winning percentage this far into the season, so we'll see whether they can right the ship tonight. Meanwhile, the training camp for Canada's World Junior team is getting underway in Niagara Falls, Ontario. It's a smaller roster than in past years, just 27 invitees compared to 40. Here's team GM Alan Miller.
The continuing thought was we wanted to prioritize preparation over more evaluations and more player selection. And, you know, within our new structure, we just felt that we could do the work in advance, have a smaller group, and at the end of the day can have a significant say in terms of who those final pieces are.
There you are. That's Alan Miller, the GM of Team Canada, which after training camp in Niagara Falls will head to Minnesota for the tournament itself. In terms of Manitoba content, defenseman Carson Carls from Cypress River, forward Carter Bear from West St. Paul, both hoping to make the cut. And there will only be 3 cuts this year because of the change in format.
Let's finish with the Northern Star Award. That's going to be given to Canada's Athlete of the Year today. Who do you think is going to come out on top?
2-horse race. Summer McIntosh any other year would be a shoo-in after winning 5 individual medals at the World Championships. As for her chief competition,
SGA on the drive, pulls back, jump shot, got it. Shea Splendor on full display.
the sound of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander helping lead Oklahoma City to this year's NBA title. Gilgeous-Alexander was named the most valuable player not only in the playoffs but the regular season as well. Some call it the greatest showing by a point guard in league history. During MVP balloting, Shaquille O'Neal certainly thought so.
I've seen Magic, I've seen Jordan, I've seen Kareem, I've seen greatness. I played with Kobe, played with D-Wade, LeBron. I've been a part of greatness. If you're not in that category, I'm not giving you no type of props. When they talk about who the next guy is, I say you got to give it to SGA right now.
Quite an endorsement there from Shaq. Maybe there should be co-winners of the Northern Star Award this time around.
All right, Scott, thank you.
You bet.
We'll talk about who does get the award tomorrow. That's Scott Reguer. Joins us every morning with Sports, 725. You're on Information Radio here on CBC. Snow coming to the Parkland region. We'll have that for you after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning, I'm Josh Crabb in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's minus 11 downtown, minus 12 with light snow reported in Dauphin, minus 12 with ice crystals in Churchill. A former PC cabinet minister who signed off on a $100,000 wildfire review says he's disappointed the NDP government didn't go through with it. CBC News has learned internal wildfire reviews conducted by Manitoba after the NDP took office consisted of verbal meetings with no written recommendations. Documents obtained through Freedom of Information requests show the internal reviews didn't result in formal reports. Riding Mountain MLA Greg Nesbitt was the cabinet minister responsible for the wildfire service when the former PC government looked for outside help for a review.
It was too big a job to determine all the deficiencies that existed, and we needed people to go out there and talk to people in the field.
After this wildfire season, the province is conducting an external review with input from Alberta firefighters who battled the blaze in Jasper. You can hear more on this story from CBC's Bartley Kivas coming up on Information Radio after the 8 o'clock edition of World Report. Advocates say a new policy to charge child welfare agencies fees for kids left in emergency placements longer than 30 days will further strain agencies that are already spread thin. The new policy involves daily fees starting at over $100 per child. Families Minister Nahanni Fontaine says changes made last year to let agencies put kids with extended family or people in their community could give agencies somewhere else to put kids who have been staying in emergency placements.
We've got now infrastructure in Manitoba to allow those kinship and customary care agreements.
Emergency placements are supposed to be stopgap measures in the system for kids to stay temporarily, but Fontaine says they're being overused. About 17% of adults and 11% of children in Canada don't have access to a regular healthcare provider. The federal government's plan to fast-track 5,000 foreign physicians to permanent residency could help bring down those numbers. The new express entry category is slated to begin next year and apply to doctors with at least 1 year of Canadian work experience over the past 3 years. Dr. Joss Reimer of Winnipeg is a former president of the Canadian Medical Association.
Yeah, it's really tricky to try to do the licensing because medical training isn't the same all across the world, and we want to make sure that Canadians get really high quality care and predictable care when they're going to see a doctor.
Doctors nominated to the fast track stream will see their work permits processed in 14 days, allowing them to work while their permanent residency is being finalized. A Conservative motion goes to the floor of the House of Commons today, aimed at getting Liberal MPs to clarify their position on the Prime Minister's energy agreement with the province of Alberta. The agreement potentially clears the way for an oil pipeline to the BC coast and the lifting of the tanker ban. Janice McGregor has more.
This is all about tactics, really. When last month's agreement with the Alberta government didn't go over well with some MPs in the Liberal caucus, Conservatives saw their opening to drive a partisan wedge and portray Mark Carney's government as divided on an issue of strategic importance in Western Canada. Conservatives say the wording of this motion is taken straight from the language in the Memorandum of Understanding itself, making it harder for government MPs to oppose their own deal. Nuances in the wording of the motion itself may be key here, because while the Conservative motion speaks of respecting the duty to consult Indigenous peoples, for example, Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson has been out on social media emphasizing that to move forward, a pipeline needs not just consultation, but co-ownership. So it's possible for the Liberals to say that, as written, this motion isn't quite an accurate portrayal of what they negotiated, and vote against. Janice McGregor, CBC News, Ottawa.
And the clock is ticking for Air Transat. If the pilots can't reach a deal with the airline today, they could go on strike as early as Wednesday morning. Pilots want better pay and working conditions. Air Transat says it's offering a 59% wage increase over 5 years. But the pilots' union disputes that number. Sandeep Gokhale is a labor lawyer.
This is the game that the union's playing. This is a game of roulette. If they aggressively push too hard and there's not a deal negotiated before they go on strike, they're opening this up for the government to intervene and force the parties back to work and force this issue to interest arbitration. So that's the strategic play that the union has to consider right now.
If your flight is canceled, the airline says it will notify you by email. That is CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local news is at 8:30.
All right. Thank you very much, Josh.
Thank you.
Well, this morning, if you are traveling anywhere in the western part of the province, Pembina Valley, stretching into the south and especially up around Dauphin, you're going to start to see the snowfall. I was just looking again on the City of Brandon's Facebook page, Abby, and that video there with the snow coming in. This is going to be part of this big system that's really going to get involved later today.
Yes, Marcy. I also saw videos from the Verdun stretch all the way coming this way, and it was really filled up with snow yesterday, and more snow still coming your way. We're going to be dealing with more like that messy winter Tuesday. That storm would impact a whole bunch of regions in the Westmount, tracking it all the way to the Parkland region, and even the Pembina Valley region is going to be seeing snow this morning. We're talking about a significant 10 to 20 centimeters of snow expected once the system comes through. The north, still remaining frigid. We're seeing wind chills in the valleys close to minus 40s in that part of the province. For Winnipeg, we are bracing for the messy one that will be coming our way because we should be getting snow this morning. We're looking at about 2 to 4 centimeters added to what we already have on the roads this morning. Minus 11 right now. We warm to minus 7 later in the day. In the Pembina Valley region, more than Winkler, Altoona Morris, you're looking at minus 12. Snowfall also coming your way. We're expecting 10 centimeters for that part of the province. Brandon is at minus 11. That special statement is on the radar for you. We're looking at snowfall. You should get about 15 centimeters, and you warm to about minus 8 later today. Some gusty conditions will also be coming with the system you will be getting today. For folks in the Parkland region, Dauphin and surrounding community, you're seeing temperatures around minus 12 at this time. Also, snowfall coming your way. We're expecting about 20 centimeters and even more. It depends on where you are in that part of the Parkland region. The wind chill this morning actually feels like minus 36 for folks there. Now, for Gimli, you're mainly cloudy now. Snow also starting very soon. You climb to about minus 7 later in the day. The part Flin Flon surrounding communities, you've been waking up to light snow lately. You're going to get more light snow today. Temperatures hovering between minus 13 and minus 15. Highs will only reach minus 17 for today. There's a risk of frostbite because of that wind chill in the valleys of minus 30 for that part of the province. And then further north in Churchill, Thompson rather, we're looking at minus 22. Light snow also falling there. Your highs will only be around minus 20, but the wind chill, you're getting minus 32 this morning. And finally, if you look at conditions around Churchill, where we're seeing minus 20 there, and then Tudula Lake, we're seeing minus 32. It's going to be more like ice crystals in that part of the province, and that would stay with you for most of the day. But the extreme wind chill is the problem for folks around Thompson. For folks around Churchill, Lynn Lake, we're looking at the values around minus 35 all day. So you won't be warming up much. It's going to be more like snow, winds, and bitter cold for the province today. Winnipeg, it's minus 11 and snow on its way to the city.
Sounds like winter.
Sounds like winter.
All right, Abby, thanks. Let's get into the commute, Corey. Is the phone ringing, or how's it going out there?
No, it's been pretty quiet so far on the phone. I haven't heard of any major issues here in the city. I am keeping an eye, though, on Manitoba 511, and I'm slowly watching the roads turn from yellow to white, which means that they're being reported as covered, which means it could be more snowy, more icy than usual. Still drivable, but you just want to exercise a little bit more caution on the highways, particularly in Westman, around Brandon, that area there. So be careful on the highways. I'd love to get some updates from someone who might be driving the highways. You can give me a call to let me know what you're seeing or not seeing if visibility is not great. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
Next on CBC, it is a way to share his late brother's life with other book lovers. We have a story about Tim Brandt's older brother, Les, who was an avid reader and had a massive collection of books. He loved to talk about what he read with others. So when Les died earlier this year, Tim decided to spread his brother's books all across Winnipeg's free little libraries. Nice story, hey? CBC Manitoba's community reporter Shanley Vidal was there as he was making his final drop-off in the Fort Rouge neighborhood.
I thought I'd bring the last of my donations of his book collection to the Big Red Library that's here at the entranceway to the Hugo Dock. And he just loved coming here just to look at the river in every week at least. I'm Tim Brandt. Les was my older brother. He's 6 years older than I am, and he had been an artist all his life. We grew up with books in the home. We didn't actually have TV in our home when we were kids, so we were all great users of the library. He was social all day, but at night he would go back in his apartment and read till 4 in the morning, and he read so many books. It was just astonishing to me. I wanted to donate his books to the little libraries because I felt it was a good way to spread him around, a little bit like scattering his ashes. So I started at the end of September delivering to libraries, and by now, early December, I've come to realize that I did 100 different libraries, and I thought I'd end it now, but winter's setting in. I've had a lot of nice comments and appreciation from friends and Facebook friends about the journey sort of thing, I guess. Yeah, people have said that it was a good way to honor him, and that thanks for taking us along on the ride kind of thing. This was a library that he checked quite regularly and often donated to himself, and I just know it would mean a lot to him that I was bringing his art books there to rest in that library too. I've enjoyed sharing his story through doing this, and so it sort of makes me feel good about him, appreciate him more, rather than just sitting and thinking about him. I feel like I'm sort of giving back something to him. I would hope people would want to share their own loved ones' lives in some creative way, whatever they can think of or see fit, rather than just keep it to themselves. The last book I put in the library was Famous Last Words, a book I just finished reading. If I were to choose a line, smile relieves a heart that grieves, and I found that is very true. No matter how you feel, if you can make yourself smile, it's a relief.
A lovely story, lovely video as well. Thanks to Manitoba community reporter Shanley Vidal and videographer Travis Golby for that. If you're watching the video, it's just really nice watching Tim on his bike with a basket on the front full of the books and dropping them all off all over the city. What a tribute. If you have a book lover in your life, I know that my late mother-in-law read books like that, like just a voracious reader, and what a wonderful tribute to make those donations all to those little libraries. It is 7:43 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. I want to talk about something coming up after 8 o'clock on the show. So after 8 o'clock on the program, we are going to be talking about something that our videographer Justin Fraser took images of yesterday. Nearly 50 geese in Lockport, Manitoba were found dead. Now, this comes on the heels of the news that the 165 dead geese that were found on the ice in Niverville on the retention pond last week. Now, those geese were removed Friday. It was confirmed they were killed by an avian flu outbreak. We do not have confirmation of what has happened in Lockport. But this morning, we are going to talk to a Canadian Wildlife Service biologist who's familiar with both cases and will be joining us after 8 o'clock on the show. So stay tuned for that. We also are getting calls right now on the commuter line. Westbound Chief Peguis before Main Street, you're losing your far right lane. Keep left. Backups are building, and that is according to Topher, who called our commuter line. You can call 278-3093, and you probably want to check highways as well before you head out, in 511 as that snow is now getting involved in the western region. About 20 centimeters expected between today and through tomorrow with this system coming. Dawson's going to be primarily affected. So is Brandon, though, and right through the parkland. In Winnipeg, it's misty right now still, and it is minus 11. Well, Newfoundland's Tim Baker has a new cover of a Christmas song out. It's a cover of Jackson Browne's thought-provoking Christmas song that has also been done by the Chieftains. Maybe you heard their version. This is the Rebel Jesus.
All the streets are filled with laughter and light, and the music of the season, and the merchants' windows all are bright with the faces of the children, and the families hurry into their homes as the sky darkens and freezes. We'll be gathering around their hearts and tables, giving thanks for God's graces and the birth of the rebel Jesus. Well, they call him by the Prince of Peace, they call him by the Savior, and they pray to him upon the seas and in every bold endeavor, and they fill his churches with their pride and gold as their faith in him increases. But they've turned the nature that I worshipped in from a temple to a robber's den. In the words of the rebel Jesus, rocks and guns. We guard our fine possessions, and once a year when Christmas comes, we give to our relations. And perhaps we give a little to the poor, if the generosity should seize us. But if any one of us should interfere in the business of why they are poor, they'll get the same as a rebel Jesus. Oh, excuse me here if I have seemed to take the tone of judgment, for I have no wish to come between this day and your enjoyment. In a life of hardship and of earthly toil, there's a need for anything that frees us. So I bid you pleasure and I bid you cheer, from a heathen and a pagan, on the side of the rebel Jesus.
So that's new music from a Canadian artist, Tim Baker from Newfoundland. That's his cover of Jackson Browne's original tune, The Rebel Jesus. It is 12 minutes to 8 o'clock. Start rolling out some holiday tunes at this time of year, right? Misty in Winnipeg. It is -11. In Brandon, it's light snow falling in -11 as well. And there's snow up in Thompson too, and it's much colder. It's -22. Well, let's continue talking about what's happening with something new in Winnipeg. Community consultations start tonight on the proposed location of a supervised consumption site. It's at 366 Henry, a few blocks west of Maine. Housing Additions and Homelessness Minister Bernadette Smith was on yesterday on the show talking about why the province is looking at that location.
People are using in and around that area, and Winnipeg Fire Police and paramedics have, responded to the majority of calls in that area. We know that we had 570 deaths last year. A good portion of those were out and around that area. But we also know that not only people are dying in the streets and overdosing in the streets, we know that people are overdosing in their homes. And we know that people need access to supports. And this is exactly what this site is going to accomplish. It's going to give people a place to consume, but a place to access resources, primary health care, mental health supports, a place to get access to housing, and someone with compassionate, caring support that is going to build relationships and help people realize that they have potential, that they can get onto a path of recovery.
So tonight's consultation, as I mentioned, it run from 6 to 8 o'clock. They are at Siloam Mission, which is a block away from this proposed site. Siloam's interim CEO, Julianne Aitken, is with us now via Zoom to talk about this. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for being with us. So what could having a supervised consumption site a block away, do you think, mean for Siloam?
Well, for us, in my understanding, that this is about saving lives and providing access to treatment options and connecting with folks. So that is a good thing, and I think everybody in the community could get behind that. What we are seeing regularly is drug poisonings in and around our building. We don't allow drug use inside the building. However, people do use inside buildings and in washrooms, and our staff are trained to respond. But for us, we rely a lot on EMS and calling emergency services when there's a drug poisoning. So if there was a supervised consumption site that was within walking distance of our building, we could build connections and we could encourage people to go there so that people are connecting with, like Minister Smith, how you just aired, provided a great overview of what is also my understanding of the supervised consumption site and what will be offered in a holistic way. So for us, that would reduce the strain on our direct service staff because folks would be accessing supports there, and then also reduce the calls. We have lots of calls to EMS and emergency services, and this would help reduce it, I believe.
How much is a lot? Like how big of a challenge is it for your staff that are dealing with drug poisonings? In Siloam or having to call EMS? How often?
Daily. The other week, the number of overdoses or the drug poisonings that took place in and around our building resulted in a drug alert. So it's the toxicity of the drug is real. And if people, I'm not sure sometimes if people understand that with drugs. So it means that if somebody, for example, was buying meth, well, instead of meth, it might be meth, but there's also something like a highly dangerous chemical that's in there, and that changes. So that might mean that the overdose isn't able to be reversed with naloxone. So there's all these different things that if somebody was able to get their drug tested, they would understand what was in their drug, and then they would have somebody on site to respond. When that happens in our parking lot, our staff respond, they provide naloxone, they call emergency services. So I think that in order to support people into treatment, you have to first meet them where they're actually using the substances and provide safe, dignified places for them to connect.
And we'll have to find out whether testing will be part of what happens inside the consumption site. Like, more details will come out. So those will be some of the questions. I just need to clarify something. You said there were so many it resulted in a drug alert. I don't know what that means, actually, a drug alert.
Well, the sector, the harm reduction network, and this is kind of another conversation, but everybody is doing this work and really cares about community and wants to make sure that staff in social service organizations and nonprofits in the sector and in health are aware if there's a noticeable change in a drug supply or a type of drug. So that's shared. So that can also be given to community members. So people who do use drugs do also care about.
So that's why I'm just going to move our conversation forward a bit, if I may. So my understanding then, and tell me if this is correct, then that different kind of drug, like something's going on, you have a day where you have a lot of people that seem to be reacting or as you said, poisoning. Then you sort of put the word out, an alert to say something's going on here.
Correct.
With the supply. I want to ask you about what we heard from some area businesses. So the manager of Pampanga Restaurant and Banquet Hall is Kelly Miranda. Her restaurant's across the street from the proposed site on Henry. She had concerns that folks in the area who come to Siloam for help could be tempted to use because of the proximity to the supervised consumption site. I'm just wondering what you make of what the impact on the population could be, or that concern.
I think understanding that people don't use this wouldn't be an invitation to use. People would still have to have, they're not supplying drugs, so people would still have to have the drugs that they were wanting to use, and this is providing an opportunity inside that safe to use. I've heard that, and I think that it's important for people in the community to be able to ask questions and get a better understanding. And I'm looking forward to, I'm joining the meeting this evening, so I'm looking forward to hearing them. We've also worked and continue to try and be good neighbors in this space, because I think that we all really want the same thing. We want safety, we want supports for folks who are unhoused, we want businesses to be doing well in the area, and we want our staff to feel safe coming and going from work. So that's important to us, and I bet that's probably important to most neighbors and businesses here too.
The province does intend to use the site to connect people with services, as you've alluded to, and so did the minister, like housing was brought up. How much of a role could Siloam play in that effort?
Well, we have a 10-year housing strategy. And so one of the areas that we're looking at moving into is some of the gaps and in supports, even from detox. So if somebody comes in and they need a detox bed, and then they move into addictions treatment and then first and second stage housing. So we currently operate a second stage, transitional housing, the Nest, the Arlene Wilson Recovery Center here for 20 individuals. And we'd like to expand that. And we'd like to expand what it could look like if there are gaps and needs in the detox and in second stage housing as well. So that's part of our housing strategy.
The consultation tonight, what questions will you have? What will you be, what are you curious about?
I'm curious to hear more from the neighbors. I'm curious to hear maybe more details on exactly what is going to be happening in the space and when. So I think that in these types of meetings, things get more specific. So I'm looking forward to hearing that. And I'm really looking forward to figuring out what are ways that we can work. This is a complex social issue, health issue. There are ways that we can move forward in a good way. And I want Siloam to be a part of that. And so hopefully this will kind of open my eyes to some things that the neighbors are experiencing, and then we can build relationships going from there.
And in terms of the things that you will hopefully, or not hopefully, the things that you may want to bring forward that you would find important to put on the table tonight, you talked about testing drugs. Is that, for just as an example, you brought that up today. I'm just wondering, is that something that you would say to you would be very important to have at the site as well?
It would be important. And I think another really key part is that it's open, the hours that it's open. So I'm not sure what that looks like right now. We know that the need is great, and we know that there are a lot of unhoused people in this area. So the hours and what would be available for people would be important to know.
Would you like to see it? Do you have hours in mind that you'd like to see?
Definitely weekends. Like, weekends are important because weekends, there's a lot of, because again, if people are unhoused, they have limited spaces where they can go. So although we're open, we have certain times of the day where we do close for cleaning and staff debriefs. So having a space that's open, we're open 7 days a week, but other spaces that are open on weekends and evenings. And I do think that there was consultation at the very beginning with Aboriginal Health and Wellness, who we already partner with, who my understanding is going to be operating it, on what are people in the sector finding the need is for community. So I believe that some of that had already happened when this was first announced several years ago. But
well, we'll see what the meeting brings forward tonight. Julianne, thank you very much for setting up the day for us here with your perspective from Siloam.
Thank you, and thank you for your interest in this topic.
That's Julianne Aitken, interim CEO of Siloam Mission. They will host an in-person consultation session for the proposed supervised consumption site tonight from 6 until 8 o'clock. And of course, we'll have coverage following through. 2 minutes to 8 a.m. right now. And Josh Crabb's back with headlines.
Good morning. Advocates say a new policy to charge child welfare agencies fees when kids are left too long in emergency placements will further strain already spread thin budgets. A former president of the Canadian Medical Association says fast-tracking permanent residency for 5,000 foreign-trained doctors is a step in the right direction. And 2 Manitobans have been named to Canada's World Junior Hockey Team training camp. This year's tournament is in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Your next local CBC News is at 8:30.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
That's Josh Crabb from our news department. Yellow snowfall warning for parts of southern Manitoba. It's going to impact Brandon. Also looking at you, Dauphin, 10 to 20 centimeters expected. This is going to be through the day, and then it'll taper off tomorrow morning. Winnipeg expecting 2 to 4 centimeters of snow. In the commute westbound Chief Peguis before Main Street, you're losing your far right lane. Still ahead, when the NDP took power in 2023, the incoming government canceled plans for an external review in Manitoba's wildfire response. We now know what those reviews looked like. And they didn't include any written recommendations. CBC's Bartley Kivas is in after 8 o'clock.
Today on Q.
I'm Talia Schlanger in for Tom Power. Sean Clare is a Canadian rap legend who helped establish the rap scene in Toronto in the early 2000s. He'll be here with a new album, his first in 20 years, and to tell you about his early days of falling in love with hip-hop.
Got this. Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
For years, the tech industry has been a great place for young people to find good jobs, but now some in that world say they have been forced to take pay cuts and survival work after losing their jobs to artificial intelligence. We'll hear from a couple of those workers coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Today in the House of Commons, the Conservatives will put a non-binding motion before MPs. Pierre Poilievre says it is meant to force the Liberals to be clear about whether they support a new oil pipeline to the Pacific coast and lifting the tanker ban. Janice McGregor is here from our Parliamentary Bureau to break it down for us. Now, Janice, why are the Conservatives choosing this as their final motion of the sitting?
Marcia, this is all about tactics, really. When last month's agreement with the Alberta government didn't go over well with some MPs in the Liberal caucus, Conservatives saw their opening to drive a partisan wedge and portray Mark Carney's government as divided on an issue of strategic importance in Western Canada. Conservatives say the wording of this motion is taken straight from the language in the Memorandum of Understanding itself, making it harder for government MPs to oppose their own deal. Debate doesn't start till this morning, but opposition leader Pierre Poilievre was using yesterday's question period as a warm-up.
Liberal members on one side of the country are saying they're against, while they're pretending in Alberta that they are in favor. So why don't they stand up in the House of Commons, look Canadians in the eye, take one position, vote for a pipe to the Pacific, and override the tanker?
The Conservative premiers across this country support this MOU in its entirety. The leader of the opposition is seeking to divide this country, and we can see through that cynical tactic.
As Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson was pointing out there, last month's agreement risked divisions in the Conservative ranks too, because opposing what the Prime Minister negotiated puts them offside what Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has put as one of her top priorities.
So how are the Liberals going to vote?
Well, nuances in the wording of the motion itself may be key here, because while the Conservative motion speaks of respecting the duty to consult Indigenous peoples, for example, Hodgson has been out on social media emphasizing that to move forward, a pipeline needs not just consultation, but co-ownership. So it's possible for the Liberals to say that, as written, this motion isn't quite an accurate portrayal of what they negotiated, and vote against.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. Air Transat says negotiations with its pilots union continue intensively this morning. It says improved offers were made last evening, and the company still hopes to reach an agreement today to avert a strike and minimize disruptions to passengers. Air Transat is trying to bring as many travelers home as possible, but it has begun cancelling certain flights. The list of affected flights can be found on the Air Transat website. Tens of thousands of people are fleeing their homes on the Thai-Cambodia border. Renewed fighting between the neighbors has entered a second day, and neither side is showing signs of backing down. Cambodia's military now says 7 civilians have been killed and 20 others have been wounded. 3 Thai soldiers have also been killed. Our South Asia correspondent Salima Shivji has more.
As the clashes broke out, panic reigned. Now the fighting is spreading along the disputed border between Thailand and Cambodia, with thousands forced from their homes. Cambodian military trucks rushing to the border area as the death toll rises. The Thai military confirming it's conducting airstrikes, and both countries accusing the other of firing on civilians and escalating tensions. The Thai side opened fire and invaded our sovereignty, says this spokesperson for Cambodia's defense ministry. Her counterpart in Thailand, Surasant Kongsiri, had this to say.
Thailand's position, including its military operations, will continue until Cambodia changes its stance, such as returning to the genuine path of peace.
The border has been in dispute since the early 1900s, when the French drew a map with a line that Thailand says is incorrect. Simmering tensions overflowed in July with 5 days of clashes. A tentative ceasefire, which U.S. President Donald Trump boasted he brought about with neighboring Malaysia's help, is now in tatters. The problem is there's politics at play, says Greg Poling, head of the Southeast Asia program at Washington Center for Strategic International Studies.
This also comes at a time of heightened nationalism in both countries. And for Thailand in particular, there's a lot of political incentive not to appear weak.
Meaning calls from the United Nations and world leaders for an immediate de-escalation might be ignored. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
Israel's government is facing another crisis as it considers new conscription legislation. The Knesset is debating a controversial bill. It would require some ultra-Orthodox Jews to serve in the military. Traditionally, the Haredi have been exempted from military service, but a recent court ruling and the war in Gaza have put pressure on the government to change that. As Tom Perry reports, it's led to some tense political debates and heated protests on Israel's streets.
Traffic on this highway near Tel Aviv isn't going anywhere. A crowd of ultra-Orthodox men and boys, almost all dressed in their traditional black clothing and hats, has blocked the roadway and a major intersection nearby. The latest protest against a government plan to force some of them to join the Israeli military.
None of us are going to go to the army. We're hell-bent. There's no way in the world we're going to go to the army.
To Yanake, joining the army means giving up his religion. Virtually all of these protesters attend yeshiva, Jewish religious school, and study the Torah full-time. They've been exempt from military service since Israel's founding in 1948, but Israel's High Court ruled last year that must end. This debate has exposed divisions in Israeli society, especially since the war in Gaza, as Israelis who are required to serve in the military increasingly question why the ultra-Orthodox get a pass. On this night, the tension is between protesters and drivers who just want to get where they're going. with angry confrontations as well between demonstrators and police. A bitter debate over politics, tradition, and religion on full display. Tom Perry, CBC News, near Tel Aviv.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky waving to the crowd from the balcony of the papal residence. He was joined by Pope Leo. Zelensky is expected to meet with Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni later today. He's rallying support against Russia. Zelensky has made it clear Ukraine will not cede territory to Moscow despite a U.S. peace proposal. Today, Russia's defense ministry says its forces continue to capture Ukrainian territory. U.S. President Donald Trump is green-lighting exports from AI giant NVIDIA to China. Trump says he will allow the California-based company to sell its computer chips to China. It's seen as a key reversal in the broader U.S. trade war with China. The CBC's Willie Lowry joins me now from Washington. And Willie, what can you tell us about this agreement?
It comes after months of lobbying by NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang. President Donald Trump clearing the way for the world's most valuable company to sell its powerful H200 chips to one of the world's biggest markets, Chinese companies. But there are some catches. On social media, Trump said the U.S. will get a 25% cut of NVIDIA's sales to China. There are concerns over the legality of that. Trump also saying that the U.S. will have to approve the companies before any transactions. In a post on social media, he said, quote, "We will protect national security, create American jobs, and keep America's lead in AI." The H200 chip is NVIDIA's second most powerful chip. This deal will eventually extend to other American companies, including Intel and Advanced Micro Devices, Inc.
Why does this deal matter?
So the deal is part of a broader tug of war between the U.S. and China as both countries look to lead in the development of AI. There's bipartisan concern on Capitol Hill that allowing Chinese companies to acquire these chips could help bolster their military and economy. In a letter sent to Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick last week, Democratic lawmakers Elizabeth Warren and Andy Kim urged the administration not to allow NVIDIA to sell its more advanced technology to China. The senator said, quote, "We should not allow big tech firms like NVIDIA to sell sensitive technology to governments that do not share our values and open ourselves to the risk that these technologies will be used against American service members, workers, and our long-term economic and national security." The Trump administration clearly sees it differently.
Thank you, Willie.
My pleasure.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington, and that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to your Tuesday show. It's December 9th. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team at Information Radio here on CBC. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Snowfall warning for parts of southern Manitoba. We're looking at the Pembina Valley, Dauphin, Brandon, and the Parklands. Abby will be talking more about that in a moment as this continues to develop. This half hour, speaking of developments, more dead geese were found in Manitoba yesterday. This is after 165 bird carcasses were removed last week from Niverville. Now, to be clear, in Niverville, we did confirm avian flu. These new dead geese were found in Lockport. Our videographer took a photo confirming the loss. We do not have confirmation this was avian flu, but we're going to talk to a biologist this half hour about geese deaths and also what he understands about these cases. In addition, when the NDP took power in 2023, the incoming government canceled plans for an external review in Manitoba's wildfire response. Well, we now know, as you might have heard in the news this morning, what those reviews looked like and that didn't include any written recommendations. CBC's Bartley Kivas is in studio, and he's going to walk us through the details of this half hour. With other news stories and developments, here's Josh Crabb.
Good morning. Some advocates say a new policy by the province to charge child welfare agencies for long emergency placements is creating chaos and confusion in the system. How a federal plan to fast-track permanent residency for foreign-trained doctors could help ease the country's physician shortage. And we'll tell you about the Manitobans trying to crack this year's Team Canada roster for the annual World Junior Hockey Tournament. Your next local CBC News is at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Well, let's get to the morning commute before weather here. Corey, what do we know right now?
Yeah, I heard from Topher earlier, called the commuter line westbound Chief Peguis, or just before Maine there, you lose your far right lane. There's some pylons up, might be some construction going on, so keep left to get around that. As you can imagine, that's causing some backups for folks. Other than that, though, highways, just be careful there. Lots of snow came through last night, and there's still snowplows working to clean that up, so it might be slippery, might be snowy, and as the day goes on, that's only going to get worse. You can give me a call on the CBC commuter line if you do see something, though, 204-788-3093.
That's your cue line for Abby.
And
It's going to get worse.
It's not yellow snow, Curry. It's just the code for the warning. Snowfall warning for many regions in the southern part of the province. This would impact the Westman region, the Parkland region, the Pembina Valley region. We're talking about Brandon and surrounding communities, Dauphin and surrounding communities, and more than down to the U.S. border. We're looking at a snowfall amounting to about 10 to 20 centimeters for that part of the province, and that would make travel really, really difficult for folks in that area. For folks around the Dauphin area, we're looking at almost 20 to 25 centimeters of snow coming your way once the system hits. But Brandon should get about 15 once the system comes and go, because you got some yesterday and more on its way today. For Winnipeg right now, still misty outside, chilly with minus 11 at the Forks. Keep your windshield wipers ready, because we'll be expecting snow to start this morning, and the highs would be around minus 7 degrees later. But the wind chill this morning feels like minus 23, and the snow will be with us for most of the day. Similar conditions for the southern part of the province. We're going to see snow return later in the evening for folks that haven't gotten snow today. Up north, we're dealing with the wind chill. It feels like minus 32 to minus 35 up there.
CBC's New Year's Eve show is back, and we want to know, what are you doing on New Year's Eve? Last year, we reached 6.8 million Canadians as we counted down live in all 6 time zones. Now, we're looking to join celebrations across Canada. Are you getting married? Doing something special? Send an email to ask@cbc.ca, and we might send our cameras to your party. Get ready for the live Cross Canada Countdown.
Ask@cbc.ca. Actually, I had a listener ask me last week, they're doing something special New Year's Eve. How do they get attention from CBC? So get those ideas in. We're going to be live on the last day of the year. Well, as I mentioned, Manitoba just went through the most severe wildfire season in recent memory. Almost 4% of our land mass in this province burned this spring and summer. That's an area about the size of Lake Winnipeg. 2 people also lost their lives up around Lac du Bonnet, and nearly 30,000 were displaced across Manitoba. Now, in the middle of that wildfire season, you might recall CBC News started asking questions about a wildfire review the province planned to do in 2023. The NDP government was advised to conduct an urgent review that fall, but it was canceled in favor of an internal review instead. CBC News has now learned those reviews did not involve any written reports or recommendations. Freedom of information requests show the province conducted verbal meetings instead. CBC's Bartley Kivas is here to talk about it, and the story published today by him and his colleague, Kristen Annabel, that you can read. Hi, Bartley.
Good morning.
So first of all, let's go back here. What was this review the province was supposed to do in 2023?
Okay, when governments change, there's something called a transition binder. Basically, stuff the outgoing government flags is important to the new government. So in this binder back in 2023, there was a note marking an urgent issue for the new government. And the NDP was advised to conduct a review of Manitoba's wildfire service, wildfire response, and preparedness. Now, they wanted to ensure the province was as prepared as possible to fight forest fires, grass fires. My colleague Kristen Annabel noticed this, and in June of this year, in the middle of our very severe wildfire season, we asked the province what happened to this review. And the response was, well, the external review didn't happen, but internal reviews were done instead. Here's what Kristen Hayward, the Assistant Deputy Minister in charge of the Wildfire Service, said at a press conference in June when I asked her about this.
We know our situation well, and we're really well positioned to be able to do an assessment and implement any recommendations that would come out of that.
So when Hayward revealed these internal reviews were done, Kristen Annable filed a bunch of Freedom of Information requests, and it took almost 6 months to respond, plus a complaint to the Ombudsman of Manitoba about the delay.
So what did you learn?
Well, those internal reviews, they consisted mostly of verbal discussion, according to Kristen Hayward. There were no written reports with recommendations about how to improve the wildfire service. On top of that, the day we asked about these reviews in June, Hayward warned other officials the province didn't have enough people to really do these reviews. She wrote in that June email, and I quote, "Due to some limitations in staff capacity, we have not been producing formal written reports that detail the outcome of these reviews. They are more like meeting notes and verbal discussion," unquote. Now, we asked Hayward about this in an interview, and she said the province didn't really need a more formal review.
So we focus on rapid feedback so that we're able to adapt on the go. So our quote-unquote review is conducted through discussions and meetings, both during the response and after the response. We don't like to focus on writing up lengthy written reports just because our response really needs to be agile.
But didn't the province say it was urgent to do a more formal review in 2023?
Well, that's what it was, yes, and that was flagged in that transition binder. But we also found out from the documents that there was they really were prepared for this in the form of that there was $100,000 set aside for an external review, and the province looked for a consultant to do that review and selected one. But after the recommendation went to Jamie Moses, the first NDP cabinet minister in charge of the wildfire service, nothing happened.
Why? Why not?
Well, we asked for an interview with Moses and with Ian Bushy, the minister in charge of wildfires now, but the province said no to both of those requests. Spokespeople for Wabkinu's cabinet said it was a department, that is wildfire staff, who insisted they didn't need a review. So I spoke to Greg Nesbitt about it. Now, he's the PC MLA for Riding Mountain. He was a cabinet minister in charge of the wildfire service before the change of government in 2023. Nesbitt authorized this external consultant, and he says he's disappointed the review didn't take place, and he doesn't believe it could have been handled internally. He traveled to northern Manitoba communities several years back to see how prepared they were firsthand.
It was too big a job to determine all the deficiencies that existed, and we needed people to go out there and talk to people in the field. I remember talking to people in the field and telling me about, generators that needed parts and things like that, and the fact that we weren't prepared if a fire hit a First Nation, because normally you had initial attack crews from the First Nation that would attack the fire before we could fly in people. And that was very, very concerning because Bartley, how remote those First Nations are, and getting crews in there quickly was tough.
So how did all of this impact the 2025 wildfire season, which of course was considered one of the worst wildfire seasons on record?
Okay, so I want to be very clear here. There's no way to know whether Manitoba would have done a better job this year if an outside pair of eyes took a gander at how we prepare for wildfire seasons. Even Nesbitt, the PC MLA, won't go that far, but he does believe canceling the external review was a mistake.
I'm just shocked that they wouldn't have carried through on a review. I mean, and for something like this summer's fire season to happen, which nobody could have predicted it would have been this bad, right? But to be so unprepared, and I think if you talk to people on the fire lines, I think they would tell you about the lack of preparedness and the lack of equipment that they had accessible.
So what happens now?
Well, in the throne speech.
Oh, we just have to get your mic back on. Sorry. What happens now, Bartley?
Well, in the throne speech in November, the NDP government did commit to an external wildfire review, and it'll include input from firefighters in Alberta who tried to save Jasper in 2024. The NDP government says this will be the broadest review yet.
All right, Bartley, thank you.
You're more than welcome.
That's CBC's Bartley Kivas in studio with his report. You can read more on the story this morning on our website right now. It's cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Something strange is happening in Canada. Kleenex is taking a powder. A certain peanut butter is skipping town. And why is the Colonel burying bland fries? Disappearing acts when popular brands are discontinued on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
Westbound Chief Peguis before Main Street, you lose your far right lane. Keep left. Now, that may be resolved by now. Please update our commuter line. 788-3093 is where you can call. Light snow continues to fall everywhere. Winnipeg, Brandon, Thompson, and especially in that Parklands region where you're expecting up to 25 centimeters of snow, they're saying now could fall in Dauphin, for example. Well, next on the show, a developing story. More geese were found dead in Manitoba. CBC News videographer Justin Fraser took images of nearly 50 geese in Lockport, Manitoba yesterday. Now, this comes on the heels of the news that 165 dead geese were found on the ice of a Niverville retention pond last week. Now, those carcasses in Niverville were removed last Friday after it was confirmed that they were killed by an avian flu outbreak. We have not yet confirmed the cause of the dead geese in Lockport. And if you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing some of those images. Frank Baldwin is a Canadian Wildlife Service biologist. He's familiar with both cases, and he joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
So how much do we know about what happened in Lockport?
Well, we haven't collected any of those carcasses yet for testing, but just based on the number of carcasses from other parts of Manitoba that have been tested at the provincial lab, most of those are suspected to be a form of this highly pathogenic avian influenza virus, so this H5 virus. So those get tested at the provincial lab, and then they go for confirmation at the national lab. And just based on the number and the distribution, we suspect that the same disease is killing these birds in Lockport.
When you say based on the number, is if there were 3 birds, you wouldn't worry? Like, can you elaborate a bit?
Well, it's a bit of an interesting situation this year because we haven't seen this level of mortality in geese. So the virus is something that the birds have evolved with. This latest virus is one that came to North America in 2021. And it's an interesting one because typically these viruses don't harm migratory birds. They carry them, they transmit them, they can really become harmful to domestic poultry, but typically they don't kill wild birds. And since this incursion of this latest virus, that's been changing. And we suspect that the high rate of mortality that we're seeing now is related to us seeing a peak in the virus when we typically have already lost most of our birds to migration, and also just the fact that the birds are under tremendous thermal stress this time of year when we have really cold conditions.
The virus is changing here or changing everywhere? What do we understand about how it might be adapting?
Yeah, it's changing everywhere. So it came over from Eurasia in 2021, and it moved across the continent really quickly, much quicker than other viruses have. And it recombines with our North American lineage viruses, so it's constantly adapting. So it's very capable of adaptation, and that's why we've seen it move across a huge number of different bird species and also into a huge variety of mammals also.
How concerning is this for you?
It's definitely concerning because it's not something we've seen before. So people have been working a long time on avian influenza, and we haven't seen this level of mortality before, or just like I said, the number of different species that have been impacted. To date, we haven't detected an effect on goose survival. So Canada goose survival rates in adults and juveniles have been relatively unchanged, but our data from that, which comes from banding them annually, it lags a bit behind time. So, our latest estimates are 2023 estimates. So it's possible that it's having more of an impact in the last year or two than it has since it came in 2021.
Remind us about the spread. I mean, obviously it's changing and morphing, but remind us about what we know about avian flu as it's presented in the past. And the question actually, to make it more specific, is coming because our videographer who took these images in Lockport yesterday, one of these geese looks like appears that he was eaten by, a scavenger. Can a predator be infected if the carcass does, if it is confirmed to have avian flu?
Yes, there's a huge variety of scavengers which has already been shown to be infected this fall. So from the provincial vet lab, we have detections of the H5 form of this virus in in coyotes, in otters, and foxes, and ravens, and crows, and snowy owls, and bald eagles. So definitely scavengers can become infected.
Help us understand the geese populations. So you see, it's the startling images, right? Seeing all these geese on the retention pond in Niverville, and now these images in Lockport last night, all these geese all over the ice. Once it's in a population are geese particularly being affected right now all over the place, or are these populations connected somehow?
Yeah, so it's interesting, and the virus has a very cyclic nature annually. So it really peaks in late November, December, January. And most of these geese, when they're here in the summer, so the birds that we're seeing now, they're a combination of geese from different areas. So we know from bands that we've recovered, and also just based on the size of the geese, there's birds that nest in Nunavut, and also from northern Manitoba, and then also from ones that nest in southern Manitoba here. And it's very cyclic in that in the spring and summer, those birds don't have any active infections of the virus, although they do have evidence of past exposure. So a very high proportion of the population's been exposed and survived. And then they come south and they mix with ducks, which are really what is thought to be the main reservoir of the virus. They become exposed to ducks, and when the weather gets cold and the birds concentrate in the last remaining open water, the virus moves through the population, or what's left of the population here, very quickly. And that's what we think is causing this peak in mortality now.
Okay, this may be an ignorant question, but why are ducks not all over the place then because of this? Or are they affected differently?
Well, we don't know for sure, but we know that ducks have a lot of background immunity from exposure to low pathogenicity avian flu viruses. So they've evolved with avian flu. They tend to be infected at a high rate, and perhaps that offers them some, increased level of immunity to the virus.
We should remind for listeners that are just sort of leaning into this now, how dangerous is this virus to humans?
So Public Health Agency of Canada, who's the authority on human health, they still consider it low risk to humans, but people should definitely take precautions. So they shouldn't be handling wild birds which have died for suspicious reasons or which appear sick, and they should also not allow their pets to interact with those sick or dead birds either.
So if you find a dead carcass on or near your property, what should your step be for the cleanup process?
Well, we have a sort of a coordinated approach with the province to become aware of events where there's large mortality events or any mortality events, and that's to call the Turn-In Poachers tip line, which is 1-800-782-0076. And that just allows people to report the case. There's not a guarantee that it'll be necessarily cleaned up, because that depends on a lot of considerations like safe ice conditions, open water, things like that. Mm-hmm. But at least it makes us aware of the presence of dead birds and perhaps gathering some for testing.
You ever seen anything like this before, Frank?
No, I haven't. No, the images are pretty striking. I was down in Niverville and just seeing the number of dead birds on that pond or the several ponds in town was pretty striking. And in communication with other colleagues across Canada, just the number of dead birds in one area is not something that they've experienced either. So just as a last question, then, what are they telling you from other provinces then? Are they having the same thing right now? Yeah, it's starting to peak or to kick up in Ontario right now. So they're definitely having more cases, more mortality events, and also just sick birds that people are calling. But it's not at the scale of mortality that we have seen yet, possibly because they don't have the ice conditions that we do and the cold weather, and maybe that's to come. But talking to some colleagues in Saskatchewan that do still have open water and birds, they're not seeing mortality there yet. Okay, well, maybe more questions and answers around some of this, but we appreciate your time today. Thank you. Thanks very much. Frank Baldwin, Canadian Wildlife Service biologist. More dead geese found in Manitoba. Images by CBC News videographer Justin Fraser yesterday showed 50 geese in Lockport out on the ice dead. Last week, the 165 of them found dead on the Niverville retention pond were confirmed for avian flu. The ones in Lockport we have not yet confirmed. If you want to read more, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning, I'm Josh Crabb in Winnipeg at 8:30. It's minus 11 downtown, light snow and drifting snow, and minus 11 in Brandon as well, light snow and minus 12 in Dauphin. Community members will get their say tonight on a proposed supervised drug consumption site. The location at 366 Henry Avenue was announced last week, and some neighboring businesses have expressed concern. They worry about safety in the area. Silo Mission is hosting this evening's community consultation. Interim CEO Julianne Aitken says her organization is already dealing with drug poisonings, and she hopes having a supervised consumption site will allow people to test drugs and get treatment if necessary.
When that happens in our parking lot, our staff respond, they provide naloxone, they call emergency services. So I think that in order to support people into treatment, you have to first meet them where they're actually using the substances and provide safe, dignified places for them to connect.
Aitken acknowledges neighbors have questions about the site. She hopes tonight's meeting will provide more details. CBC News has learned internal wildfire reviews conducted by Manitoba after the NDP took office consisted of verbal meetings with no recommendations. You've been hearing about this story on Information Radio. In 2023, the incoming government cancelled a PC Commission plan to conduct an external review. Documents obtained through Freedom of Information requests show the internal reviews didn't result in formal reports. Kristen Hayward is the Assistant Deputy Minister responsible for the Wildfire Service.
We don't like to focus on writing up lengthy written reports just because our response really needs to be agile.
After this wildfire season, the province is conducting an external review with input from Alberta firefighters who battled the blaze in Jasper. Advocates say a new policy to charge child welfare agencies with fees when kids are left in emergency placements longer than 30 days will further strain an already spread thin system. Mona Biors oversees child welfare services as a minister with the Manitoba Métis Federation. She says the kids in emergency placements long term are there because they need special resources that don't exist. And the new daily fees starting at over $100 per child will hit her agencies hard.
The province is placing the burden of high costs of care to the agencies, and we are already underfunded.
Emergency placements are supposed to be stopgap measures in the system for kids to stay temporarily, but the province says they're being overused. The federal government intends to fast-track permanent residency for 5,000 foreign doctors currently working in Canada. Immigration Minister Lena Diab made the announcement yesterday. Dr. Joss Reimer is a former president of the Canadian Medical Association. The Winnipegger says it's a step in the right direction.
And when we heard from doctors who are internationally trained and here on temporary work permits, one of the things we heard from them that was a struggle was any sort of path to permanent residency. So if we really do want to retain the doctors already here, we need to listen to them and make sure that we're providing them with the services that they need to be able to keep providing services to Canadians.
Even with this fast-tracked plan, Reimer estimates there are around 13,000 physicians in Canada who are not practicing medicine. And finishing off with some hockey news, 2 Manitobans have been invited to try out for this year's Canadian World Junior Hockey Team. Forward Carter Bear of West St. Paul plays for the Everett Silvertips in the Western Hockey League, and he's been invited to the camp, as well as Cypress River product Carson Carls of the WHL's Prince George Cougars, among those hoping to represent Canada at this year's tournament being held over Christmas in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And that is the CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local CBC News is coming up at 9 o'clock.
All right. Thanks a lot, Josh.
Thank you.
Big thanks to all the people who worked in the program today. Let's have a quick final look at what's going on in traffic. Corey.
Yes, westbound Chief Peg was heading towards Maine. Heard that you lose the far right lane. So heads up there. Might be some pretty backed up traffic for you there.
All right, and what's going on Radio Noon today in terms of the call-in?
Yes, hosting Radio Noon this afternoon, and we are asking, what changes have you made to keep up with the rising food prices? There's a new report that says you could very well see the total at the bottom of your receipt more than double next year. So we're going to talk with Sylvain Charlevoix, the food professor, and ask you to call in to share how you've been changing the way you shop for food.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Corey's hosting noon, by the way. That's why I'm asking him, and Marge hasn't popped in here. I just want to do a quick thank yous here. Zubina Ahmed, Jenna Badasso, Sophia Peralta Barone, all of our APs in unit that worked on the program today, our associate producers. Also our community reporter, Shanley Vidal, videographer Travis Golby, from our news department, Josh Crabb, Joni Nicolo, and Megan Ketchison, and of course our live Studio 15 team, Corey Funk, Abby Adiemi, and Darren Marash. And our senior producers. So our show's producer is Nellie Gonzalez, and the senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba overall is Mr. Leif Larson. So thanks everybody for today. Abby, what do you have to say?
The first major winter storm for the season hitting the south. Snowfall warnings are in place for Dauphin, Brandon, and all the way down to the Pembina Valley region this morning. We're looking at snow between 10 to 20 centimeters, and Dauphin expected about 20 centimeters of snow. We should see about 2 to 5 centimeters in Winnipeg today.
La 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 la. All right, everybody, take it easy out there. Drive safely, shovel safely, all of the stuff that winter brings, and enjoy it. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll be back again tomorrow with another edition of Information Radio right here on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on 89.3 FM, and The Current's coming up next.